Good evening, everyone. I, we are starting, yes, without Trustee Plum. He will join us by phone as soon as he can. He is up in Stony Brook getting a vaccine. That's good news for him. Um, we have a lot on this agenda tonight, a lot of laws, a lot of discussion. A lot of people have had a lot of discussion already. So let's get right into it. The first one is a local law amending Chapter 300. This is being introduced tonight. This is to allow the Board of Historic Preservation and Architectural Review to have a small review by a committee of 2 members for items that are not of major significance. The hope is that this will speed up things within the ARB and keep agendas moving. So this is an introduction. Can I get a motion to introduce, please?
I'll move it. Good idea.
I'll second it. It is a good idea.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We will have public hearing about that at the next board meeting, but again, I think it's a pretty good idea and pretty straightforward. Our next local law is a local law amending Chapter 300 zoning to update the lighting regulations to ensure continued and improved compliance with dark sky recommendations. This was introduced on February 9th. This has been worked on tirelessly by our attorneys and our engineers and Susan Harder, who is a lighting expert and has been a consultant to the village as well as the town of East Hampton and the town of Southampton and the villages in those towns, and has been really wonderful. So if there are any questions, we can take questions, or if not, we can move to a vote.
I just have a quick question, Mayor. Somebody contacted me about this and had the question of whether there's an LED requirement associated with what we're doing. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense because there's an LED requirement in the building code for houses. So I'm not sure. And then it comes into the temperature of the LEDs, because the last thing we want is bright blue light outside. So it's a good question, but I don't know the answer.
Well, the question is raised in connection with something called Climate Smart.
Climate Smart Communities.
Denise, yeah, I can comment on that if you want, because I met with the climate. I'm actually on the climate committee, and we feel it's beneficial if the village would invest in the LED lights, because it could save 40 to 60% in our electric cost. You know, it might cost some investment. We might have to invest a little at the beginning, and there's programs where the cost would be, almost nothing, or be offset over time, to where in the future the village would start to save 40 to 60% in its electric bills for the street lighting. So I'm not sure.
Is that LED, Tom, or is that the number of Kelvin?
That's the LED fixture that we're talking about, but I'm not so sure it has to be included in this. I think that this is, Denise can add to that. I'm just saying that it's something that we should look at.
I think a question that's been raised is that in the draft, the lumen maximum is 2,700, and we've gotten comments from internally from a member of the Harbor Committee, and that perhaps it should be 3,000, which is where it's at right now. So I don't know if that's getting to the question you were asking. It might be, because what they were talking about is LIPA's program of green bulbs for us around town that are dark sky compliant, and the belief that they would only do that on a 3,000 lumen basis. And so those are the comments that I've received. But
Susan, I know you're on the line and unmuted.
Yes, I just wanted to say, yes, LEDs are allowed, fantastic, with great energy saving. Because the manufacturers are responding to all the research and the reports that are coming out about reducing the Kelvin for better night vision and for health and flora and fauna preservation and the night sky. The higher the Kelvin, the more sky glow. So, and 2700 is a warm color, and anything above that, you start to get much higher percentage of blue light, which is deleterious to our vision, actually even our eye health. It contributes to macular degeneration. So we now have Kelvin down to 1800. So, a wide range of fixtures. So this is simply a bulb change. And when you go to the hardware store, you can look on the packaging and they list 2700 Kelvin. So it's just a matter of selecting the correct light source.
Okay, I believe we also have Emily Halleck. I don't know if you've been unmuted. Emily, can you speak up? Because you're the one who's, Emily is our intern who's been driving the climate smart community.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. So I recognize that there are definitely some significant environmental as well as human health benefits to reducing our code to 2700. However, at this point in time, I urge that the board keep the lighting regulations to a maximum allowed 3000 Kelvin, as it is my understanding that in the event of an LED streetlight conversion, that by limiting our lumens to 2700 Kelvin, it reduces our opportunity for electricity savings, which also equals cost savings, which means that the project, if we were to look at it, would not be as financially viable and would require money being put out by the village rather than it being covered through a NIPA financing option. But in addition, right now, East Hampton Town and Southampton Town, their codes both currently allow up to a maximum of 3000 Kelvin. So I believe at this point in time, we should retain the 3000 Kelvin in our local law, and we can maybe table it for further discussion in how it could apply to the possibility of a streetlight conversion as well.
Can I interject something?
Absolutely.
I've actually spoken to those, or the group that is doing the streetlight conversions, because they did this in Southampton, and they said that if we had asked for the 2700, they would have complied, but they had already approved the project. Now, the reason East Hampton and Southampton have not enacted it yet is because we simply haven't gotten around to it. So I respectfully, disagree. They're widely available. All you need to do to tell this group, you'll still be able to do those streetlight conversions and get the benefits of it. But you simply have to tell them that you want to use 2700 and they will do it. So I suggest you keep it at 2700. And if they balk, you simply tell them, well, that's in our code, and they will comply.
Well, will they give us as large of a grant for it at the time of complying?
That's what they told me. I mean, it's worth going and telling them that it's now part of your law. They want to go ahead with these projects all over the state.
Did we check with them before we write the code or the law just to confirm all of this?
But Denise, you said that you amended the law, right, to include up to 3000?
Right now, the way the law reads now, our law in the code says 3000. This draft provision says 2700. But I just want to remind the board that we're exempt actually from the 2700 limit for that type of lighting. So if you did have to use 3000 for the street lights, you would not need to comply with that. But obviously completely the board's choice if you want to stay with your 3000 limit that you have now or reduce to the 2700, which is what Susan's recommended.
All right.
Mary
I believe
Ann's raising her
Mary Ann
hand.
Eddy is desperate to add to this conversation.
Well, thank you. I don't know if I'm
Can you introduce
desperate.
yourself, please? I
Yes,
should have
it's
asked the other two speakers as well.
Hi, Mary Ann Eddy. I live at 96 Hampton Street. And we had heard some of what's been stated here before. So Emily and I went and we spoke to people in Southampton. We spoke to Lauren Shearer, who is the town administrator that includes planning and sustainability. We talked to the planner, Michelangelo Lieberman. We talked to Kristen Doulos, who manages the town's parks, and I'm not sure what else, but she has responsibility for the streetlights. We talked to Tommy John Schiavone. They did an LED conversion. They converted approximately 2,700 streetlights, of which all but about 89 or 86 are 3,000 Kelvin. And those 80 whatever are in a particular area, and it might be comparable to the streetlights we have on Main Street, the old sort of antique looking streetlights. Kristen said that when they first did the implementation, they had 6 to 12 calls complaining, and their response was, call us back in 30 days if you still have an issue. They got no calls back. There was no suggestion on the part of any of the people that we talked to, including the people from the Dark Skies community, Joy Flynn in Southampton, that there was any movement to change this 3,000 Kelvin max to anything else.
All right. Can I suggest, I think Denise has just given us the answer to all of this. I think we can change the law to 2,700. And if indeed we want to do the streetlights and the NIPA, we can still do 3,000 because we would be exempt. Is that correct?
That's a good plan.
That's
So I
correct.
think that's a compromise that can work for everyone. Is that all right with the rest of the board?
Yep, that's okay with me.
Can I ask a question again?
Sure.
Denise, how is it that we are exempt, and how could we sell that to the village that
But-
they are, sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander? How can we say that, okay, you're limited to this, but we can do 3,000? And we did talk to NIPA about the possibility of using 2,700, and they just said that it's not only economic savings, but it's the greenhouse gas reduction that's, hand in hand with decreased electricity, that would be reduced by going down to 2,700. I'm just not sure how we can say, well, this is good for you, but we're going to do this.
Well, now you're not making sense, because you're saying that if they said that it's even better for the environment if you go down to 2,700?
No. The environment is all conditioned on the amount of electricity that you use. And as Emily stated, that if we were to have 2,700 to get the same amount of illumination, you have to use more electricity. So
But
more electricity.
It's very, very slight. And what we want to do is use a wise use of energy. And I'm on that dark sky committee from Southampton, and we were vehemently opposed to the 3,000 Kelvin.
Well,
So I don't know who you talked to, but we spoke to them after the fact, and they said if we had asked for 2,700, they would have given it to us. And it's a minute change in energy between 2,700 and 3,000, but even that's changing. They're coming up with technology that does not change the energy at all.
Okay.
So,
Well,
but I think if you say, I
Excuse
like
me.
the mayor's compromise. I think it's perfect.
Yes, because
Well, I don't think
right
it's a
now, we are not changing the streetlights. That's not happening this minute. But this is something that is good for the entire village right now,
Mhm.
and it can be adjusted as needed. And when the time comes to change the streetlights, we can have the conversation. And as one of you pointed out, technology is changing all the time. So the streetlights may not change for a number of years.
That's
But
a good.
let's get this moving now and have it started and go from there. So, can I get a motion, please? From anyone on the board to move forward, if we want to move forward, or if we want to table and continue the conversation, we can do that.
I would like to table this because there's a lot of different opinions here that I need to sort through before we make a move on this. the compromise, for want of a better word, that Denise suggested, is that what's contained in the law as proposed tonight?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So that would mean that private residence, et cetera, would be limited to 2,700 Kelvin. The municipality be limited to 3,000, but that's not an issue right now because we have no intention of changing anything at the moment.
What it says in the law specifically is that street lighting is exempt from any of the regulations contained in the code.
So this is sort of a half a loaf right now, that we would at least get this on the books at 2,700 for all private residents.
Right.
I'm sorry, does that include things like the docks and the sewage treatment plant and other non-street light municipal lighting?
This is in the existing code. It's not proposed. It says municipal street lighting.
So we would not be embarking on a program within the village to change every light bulb. It would be as needed as we go along. So if we have to get a new light bulb in the sewage treatment plant for an outdoor light, we could buy a 2,700 Kelvin bulb. There's no program to strip every light fixture of its existing bulb and replace it immediately.
There's nothing immediate. There are programs out there that could help us do that with grants, but it is not something that is something that's going to happen.
I mean, in general, the lower the Kelvin, the better the village looks and feels as well, because it's a warmer light, more akin to what we're accustomed to.
Yes.
I would, having discussed this a little more, I think, maybe it's a good idea for this to move ahead this evening, and then we have the opportunity to change down the road. So I will make the motion.
Thank you. I get a second?
I'm not going to support it, not in its current, the way it's written, because it's going to put us in a box. And with all due respect, Mrs. Harder, I understand they told you something different, but right now that's not what that's not what's on the books. So I think it should be kept at 3,000. I don't think we should pass a law that and enforce it on residents that ourselves are not going to be compliant with. I don't see how that's fair.
I think the point is that if we were to be buying, what's the number of streetlights? 200 and some, I think it is.
No, it's almost 400.
Okay, so 400 streetlights. That becomes a major, that suddenly is a cost differential. Emily, what is the share of our electric bill that goes to our streetlights?
25% of our total electric bill goes to streetlights.
Goes to just streetlights.
Yes, which is about $50,000 annually.
Right. So that's a big savings. I don't think for my lights at my house, if I changed it from 3,000 to 2,700, would I see a penny or two on my electric bill? I don't know.
So, Kathleen, what they did in Southampton is they put an LED light up on a street light next to what we know and love right now. And I would suggest we do the same thing here. They did that and had 2 public meetings for the public about this conversion. But we could also do one with 2,700 and 3,000 and see whether or not there's a discernible difference.
I think the discernible difference is the cost when you're talking about 400 of them. I don't think it's,
yeah.
I don't know a discernible difference in lights, et cetera, but.
When we speak of cost as well, the LED bulbs have a much longer life than the incandescents. So do we know roughly how often we have to change a street lamp, the bulbs at the moment, and how much longer the life of an LED would be?
I have no idea.
LEDs are supposed to last for 10 years. And you're changing your high pressure sodium at probably about every 4 years.
Okay.
Right. We were told maybe 10 to 15 years for an LED, but 10 years on the short side.
Jim LaRocca has just texted me that he has been dropped off somehow. Which I was wondering where he was.
Yes.
Chelsea, can you take a minute? Sorry. With bringing down to 60 today, though, the vaccines, we can all meet as a board again in person.
Yes, which would be great.
Vaccines. Jim's system has dropped out. Chelsea, if you want to reach out to him and try to help him, he's trying to get back, but just keep an eye out for him. So at this point, Tom, we're not moving. If we're not moving forward because we only have 3 of us here. So can we table and move on?
I guess that seems like Tom, you want to?
I'll make the motion to table.
And I'll second it.
All right. We will continue this and a month from now, and maybe have more information, or Marianne and Susan and Emily, the 3 of you can speak together and see if you can come to a way where we've got a little bit more information, and some more information about the street lamp program too would be helpful to see if and when that is something that we're going to be moving forward with.
I forwarded the presentation to Jim LaRocca and he's looking at it.
Okay, great.
Excuse me, Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor, or is the hearing being tabled? So the hearing is still open and being tabled to the next meeting?
Yes, the hearing is being tabled. So we have 3 of us in favor of that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Our next one is our local law amending Chapter 300 zoning, proposed addition to Chapter 300 zoning land clearing regulations. This also was introduced at our last meeting, our last board meeting. This is to stop some of the clear cutting before, particularly you must have a plan when you get your building permit, and you cannot clear cut before the building permit. Are there other key parts of it, Denise, that you want to address?
That's it, Mayor. It's essentially this already exists in the code, but it's not in the zoning chapter, and it's sort of in an area where you might not find it readily. So we wanted to move it into Chapter 300 where it was more obvious that it was in there. And this is all a precursor to a more comprehensive clearing law in the future.
Okay. I do not see any hands up, but I don't see hands, so I'm not of any value really. If there is anyone in the public who wants to speak on this, I would try unmuting yourself and see if that works. And
Excuse me, Mayor, did you make a motion to open the public hearing?
I did not. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing on this? Thank you.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Thank you.
Jim is back.
We're on. All right. There's no one in that case. Oh, hello.
Hi, Madam Mayor, it's Steve Williams. I just want to say this, in our neighborhood, we've seen some people clear land without approvals. I photographed it, both still and motion. Called Tom at the time, and he drove down pretty quickly, about 15 minutes, and they saw him coming and they scattered, and he said he had to see them actually clearing the land. So if you're going to amend the motion, I would think that if something is photo documented the way we can now with longitude and latitude and time on the photographs, that you could amend it so that one of the village employees doesn't have to actually see it, but can see the before and after.
Denise?
Unfortunately, that's not possible. It's since it's a quasi-criminal violation, the CPL, which is the criminal procedure law, states that the violation must be personally witnessed by the code enforcement officer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice try, Steve.
Can I say something?
Can I ask
One
something?
second, Kate. Your brother is trying to get into the meeting, so I want to make sure he's here.
Okay.
Do we know, Bob Plum, are you on the meeting now? Chelsea, he's calling in by phone. All right, well, let's keep going. Kate, what?
Well, Kate Plum, Richards Drive, 33. I just think this is very important. As the beginning step, we're just moving the clause from a obscure place in the code to another place. But the other point of it is that if you're tearing down trees, like Mr. Williams said, and you don't have a building permit, then but there's no penalty for that. And so, but you have to see it. The code enforcer has to see it happening. So it seems to be a law that doesn't have any ramifications in my mind, but I can be persuaded otherwise.
Well, I believe by the building permit part of it, it does make people realize they can't do this and then expect they will get a building permit, or it will make it much more difficult for them to get a building permit. So at least we will have, that part of protection there that we don't have at the moment. And as Denise said, it will be much clearer and a clearer part of the law, part of the code.
Okay, well, they won't get a permit if they've already done that, but the house is up after they get a build. Well,
No. They can't get a building permit. They can't build a house.
Okay. But it has to have been seen by a code enforcer. The egregious act. Is that
No
correct?
matter what violation we're talking about, the violation has to be witnessed by a code enforcement officer. It's just
Okay.
mandatory in the law.
So unfortunately, that leaves everybody all weekend to cut and to do it at night. And the lot was cleared. It's 200 feet from my house. I never heard a power saw, but I come in and see, I'm just saying, I understand what it is.
Yeah.
But maybe when we go to the perfect, finalized version, there can be some other consideration added.
This is supposed to be the perfect finalized version. But your point is taken. I just don't know that we have a solution for it at the moment, other than the zoning board being made aware of, a lot that had trees on it. There aren't that many we're down to less than 10 in the village. Lots that had trees on it. And then when they come in for a building permit and there are no trees, the zoning board can take some of that into consideration in how they move forward with a project. Correct, Denise?
Yeah, this is Bob Plum. Isn't this a state mandated? It's not just for clear cutting. It's also for instance, shoveling sidewalks and whatnot.
That's
Is that
correct.
not the case?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. The criminal procedure law is the same for any kind of violation. So anytime you're charging someone with a violation, it would have to be an act that's witnessed.
At many of the architectural review board meetings, there's very detailed and landscape discussions where certain plantings are required. Is that a way that we could force people to put back some? I know it's never going to be the
Yes.
equivalent size and maturity of the trees that were removed, but if there was some measure
Yeah.
of caliper that we could force people to put trees back on the property to try and at least restore. And again, I know that's not really possible, but to make some effort to restore the landscape as to what it was, so it might be there for future generations.
Right. And that's exactly sort of what prompted moving the law to where it is now in the code, so that it's more obvious that you have to do something. You have to apply for a building permit and the clearing at the same time. It's supposed to be one and the same. And if you haven't, and then you go to the ARB, they're going to have jurisdiction over the landscaping, the fact that it's been removed.
Yeah, we discussed the other. Oh, sorry. Excuse me, Denise.
Oh, no, go ahead. That's okay.
Well, we discussed the distinction the other day between major trees and other things, and there was sort of a 24-inch caliper was considered a major tree. And
Right.
those are really, I think, the ones that we're most concerned about. And you could replant the 24-inch tree if you're made to. So I think that's a distinction we need to make.
Mhm. Yes, we're working on, sort of part 2 of this code work that we're doing. And in part 2, dealing not only with clearing, but also just with removal of what we're calling grand trees in the law, which are like, Trustee Plum said, greater than, I think, 24 dBH or something like that. But this
And
change
they,
is something.
and they cost a fortune to replant, but that's what it is.
Yes, it does.
So the answer to Kate and Mr. Williams is yes, it's not a perfect world because of the way that the criminal ticketing goes, but it is at least this way there's more teeth to our current clear cutting law. So it's a baby step. It's a small tree, not a grand tree, but it's something.
Thank you. Thank you, Denise. Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Can I make a
Kathleen.
suggestion?
Sure.
Can't we have a civil penalty that doesn't come under the criminal procedure law and thus doesn't meet the requirements?
We do in phase 2. I don't know. This is just being put in the zoning code. I don't know if there's a civil penalty in there. I can't remember.
I'm just suggesting generally that the problem that was addressed was that for instance, for a violation, it has to be witnessed. And that's for a criminal violation, but for a civil violation, it wouldn't have to be. It would meet a different standard.
Right.
By
Right
changing
now,
it.
most of the violations in the code are set up to be violations, but there are a few that I put in, since I've been here, I put in civil penalties as well, like for wetlands violations. So as we move forward with code revisions, they're going to have both options.
This is Will Sharp. I think that what Mr. Parker just suggested is an interesting idea because a lot of violations that happen on the weekend, there is no building inspector to visit a site where there's work on a Sunday or late Saturday, et cetera. And if there is some vehicle that allows, I mean, how do you do it? How do the police don't want to get involved. The building inspectors work Monday through Friday, I guess.
No, our code inspector also works Saturdays.
Yeah, we've talked to the code inspector about what would be required. Some things need surveillance work. I mean, this is,
I'm sorry, I don't want to be argumentative. This is my last statement about this. The mayor said we have 10 lots with significant trees on them. It wouldn't take code enforcement a long time to drive past our lots that are vacant and unimproved, take a picture of it. And then if there's a significant change, the owner's responsible for it. It's not like someone's going to say, and this should be for all trees, not just ones that on lots that are being cleared. So it's not going to be such a question. The owner's responsible for the trees on that lot. And if they take those trees down without the proper permission, which we do give at the ARB for people who are worried about trees crashing in on their house, then we have documentation of the before and after. And it can be a civil penalty. And it doesn't need to be manned or surveilled during the weekend.
We use GIS survey pictures for that. We have a lot of really great area shops that are all dated.
We've talked about that as well. And again, that's part of the next set of this code and the next, as we go forward. Right now, this is really just to move it into the zoning, and then we're going to go deeper. And yes, we've talked about GIS. Southampton side of the village has very good GIS. The East Hampton side is a little bit harder. We even talked about doing a drone flyover of the village to get it as of a certain date. So there are things, but again, part two. This is just a interim protection for right now. Can I get
Madam Mayor, if I may, Shannon
Yes.
Richards, 63 Terry Drive. Not to extend the conversation, as Mr. Williams has also indicated. My question would then be, what is the time frame for the village, or does the village have a sense for time frame for phase two? Because we clearly have a gap in accountability because of a gap in availability for witnessed transgressions, thereby a gap in enforcement. So if phase two is the ultimate big tree answer to our question, what does that time frame look like? Thank you.
Denise?
We're scheduling a public hearing for April. I think, I mean, I haven't talked to the mayor about the time frame, the date itself, but it would likely be the second meeting in April, which is their work session, if that works for her.
Which will be a lot of, that meeting will all be not all, but many environmental laws that will have a lot bigger teeth in them in that April meeting. I believe it's, I want to say the 24th, but I'm not certain of that. So can we get a motion to move on this from anyone?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, Mayor, excuse me one moment. Did you close the public hearing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Nope. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Do we need to take the vote again? Beth?
Could you just repeat who motioned? That was Bob Plum seconded, trustee Plum, and the first motion was trustee Corish.
Correct.
Thank you.
Do we have trustee LaRocca on?
Yes.
Yes, he is muted at the moment.
Okay. He can, I believe everybody has control of their own muting
Okay.
at this point.
I'm here, alive and well, above
Oh,
water.
good. Thank
Above
you.
water. Okay.
Glad to hear it. All right. Yes, we're all in favor. Moving on to local law authorizing the issuance of a special exemption use permit for outdoor dining accessory to restaurants and retail food stores on a permanent year-round basis. This law came about from the executive order that we allowed outdoor dining to happen this past year. We think it was an overall success. This will allow this to continue. Obviously, it may not be exactly as it looked like for the for last year because it was all put together extraordinarily quickly and moved on. But we do hope that many of our restaurants will take advantage of it, and I think this is a long overdue law. Trustee LaRocca, do you have more to add to it? This is your baby.
I want to second the sentiments there. I think the village learned that it liked this by and large, because there had been years of debate about how much cafe life the village would entertain. And I think we learned a lot. We also learned a lot of practical lessons, what works and what doesn't. Right now, we're on the cusp of another change on March 19th. Per the governor's order, the indoor dining will go to 75%. And as we understand it, the total count will still be have to be the zero-based 100% that it was before. So that'll impact on how many people are outside. But we are, I think, celebrating the success of this so far. Making it permanent and year-round is good and I believe necessary. And we'll sort out all of the practical problems as we go. Every place is unique. Every situation is individual. But I think we're a good start. It's time to permanentize it, make it a year-round phenomenon, and we'll continue to adapt to the emergency and the evolution back to a full normal over time.
Great. Trustee LaRocca, can you give a motion to open the public hearing?
I move the hearing be open.
You?
I'll second.
I won't repeat my speech.
I'll
Well, we
second.
were public. All in favor to open?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we have comments from the audience? Again, it seems as though if you want to speak, just unmute yourself and go ahead.
It's *6 to unmute yourself if you're on the phone.
Thank you.
While we're waiting, I'd like to thank Jim for shepherding this through the process. I think it's a great idea and will be a great benefit to the village. And I look forward to taking advantage of it as soon as we can. Thanks, Jim.
You're here.
Thank you, Aidan.
All right. I don't see anybody wanting to comment, so can I get a motion to vote, please?
So moved.
Oh, one moment.
Sorry.
I move to close the hearing.
Oh, close the hearing. Sorry. Thank you. Can I get I'll second that. All in favor? of
Second.
Closing the hearing?
Aye.
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 And I'll move passage of the local law.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The next one is a local law to provide for the amendment of the Village Code, Chapter 186 for Parks and Recreation to regulate conduct on all public beaches and public parks. This law has caused a lot of emails in the past 72 hours. So I want to reiterate what a number of you have already heard, but we have made crystal clear within the law that this is just village-owned public parks and beaches. The Havens Beach, we can put up, I don't know, Denise, if you have it handy, otherwise I can find it. The Havens Beach map that shows the the lines very clearly, so everyone is aware of what we're talking about. But that's what it is. Denise, do you want to add anything before we open up the public hearing?
I think just that the impetus behind this was from the police chief wanting a good set of regulations that he could use in order to sort of control conduct in the parks and on the beaches during the business. So we started this process about a year ago, talking about what regulations would be helpful for him and his department, and what you see tonight is the result of it. And it's, like I said, only applies to public properties, doesn't apply to private property. And we do have that map. Pull it up here. I think. Are you able to put up on?
I am able to put up the map if
you're made
Kelsey, if I can have share screening. Thank you. So there's the map. It shows very clearly the Havens Beach boundaries. And that is the only part of the only beach that we are speaking about in this. All the other beaches are still everything, they're private beaches if you own the waterfront up to the high tide mark. The other beaches that are village owned are small coves and not under this jurisdiction. So this is the beach that this law is about. So with that, I will, can I get a motion to open to public hearing, please?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
It says Bruce Fletcher, but
Yes.
do you have a comment?
Yes.
Hello?
If it's proper time.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is there someone who has a comment on?
Yes, I would like to comment.
Okay, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Michael Mosley. I live at 69 Harbor Avenue in Sag Harbor. One of my concerns is in your section L1 of dogs on the beach. It talks about transporting, the ability to transport through restricted areas. And as written, that would give credence to people, for example, that aren't in those communities coming onto the beach at that point to access the dog park within the zone that you're talking about. Quite often it's a contentious point on the beach. The various communities along that beach have their own regulations regarding dogs. And this particular point in the provision sort of vitiates those regulations or policies created by the communities. I understand that you're saying you're regulating only the zoned area, but the language that you use has far-reaching implications that would legally allow someone to then say, well, I'm going through a restricted area to gain access to the beach. Then there's also the issue of restraint, verbal restraint, manual restraint. It's very annoying on the beach. And I am a dog lover. Thank you for the dog barking in the background. But dogs, run up on small children. They run up on kids. People paddleboard in the water with their dogs running along in the beach. So I think the law as written, particularly L1 and L3, puts the community member at risk of trying to understand and educate people to the law. And when you particularly try to educate someone, they get very upset and boisterous. So then that gets to the issue of enforcement, and possibly the 3 to 4 young people who sit at the gate to Havens Beach might patrol the beach occasionally, be able to issue citations, generate revenue for dogs that aren't licensed, but put some enforcement behind this, because the beach goers of those communities are essentially voiceless, because you don't want to have arguments with everyone, number one, and number two, you can't enforce it. So I asked the board and the town attorney to reconsider drafting sections L1 and L3 to protect those neighborhoods, because as I say, as written, one could make an argument to legally walk through those areas, those restricted areas. I think transport through restricted areas is your language. Thank you.
Can I speak to that?
Yep.
Well, I just say I don't think it applies. The restrictions here are to public beaches. So any restriction or restricted area you'd be transporting through would not be a private beach, it would be a public beach. So for instance, this would this would not allow somebody to go through a private beach because these restrictions don't apply to that. It will allow somebody to go from, for instance, a private beach across a small section of Havens Beach to get to the meadow at Havens Beach where the dogs are allowed. And I believe that's the reason for that provision.
This is Errol Taylor. Can I chime in for a minute?
Yep. Just introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, my name is Errol Taylor. I am the president of the Nineveh Beach Property Owners Association, and also a homeowner of a beach front lot in Nineveh Beach. First, I do want to echo the concern about the clarity with which this provision refers to public beaches. I understand that the intent is to clearly limit the provision to Haven Beach, but the language as written is subject to a broader and different interpretation. It would be best, in my view, if it were revised and where it refers to public beaches in the proposed new law, that simply be changed to Havens Beach. And that would in my view, remove any possible uncertainty or argument that the public beach references to something broader than Havens Beach, especially as mentioned that there are provisions regarding, what constitutes a beach in the provision that could be interpreted to have this provision provide something beyond simply Havens Beach. This issue regarding traversing other properties to get to to Havens Beach is also, I think, something that is a potential area of unclarity. One of the provisions allows individuals to traverse quote unquote restricted areas. And I'm not sure what a definition of a restricted area is. So I think there could be some more clarity there that, restricted area does not mean or imply that you go across anything other than a restricted area in Havens Beach. And finally, the provision changes the rules regarding dog access to beaches during the summer months. There is a provision 80-4 in the code that restricts dogs from beaches from before Memorial Day through Labor Day. This changes that provision without even referring to the other provision of the law. So there's a clear conflict there. And this is a major issue in our communities east of Havens Beach with regard to dogs on the beach. So I would ask that if the village is going to change that provision to something that is less restrictive than the rules that the homeowners in Nineveh have placed on their beaches, that there really be some clarity on that provision does not impact or vitiate the more stringent provisions that the beaches to the east of Haven Beach have in place. So those are my comments on this provision.
Thank you.
May I make some comments? Bruce Fletcher.
Sure, Bruce. Introduce yourself, please.
I'm Bruce Fletcher, live at 41 Shaw Road, Sag Harbor. I just received the new revised thing, and I appreciate, Mayor, that you're pointing out that this only includes Havens Beach, but I wish to point out a couple factors. As is written now, section 1, the village trustees also seek to define these areas constituting public parks and public beaches regulated by this chapter by defining them as those properties owned and or managed by the village of Sag Harbor. They took out the word broadly, which doesn't change anything. They are saying that the Sag Harbor Village manages beach. It is a public beach. Nowhere, and I mean nowhere, does the law stipulate what managing the beach means. Yet that is the determining factor besides the village owning the beach, whether a beach is public or not. On 186-1, the new revision says the lands and facilities in the village of Sag Harbor, New York, known as Havens Beach, are hereby designated as a municipal beach and a municipal park of the village of Sag Harbor. Such lands shall be governed by the regulations set forth wherein and shall be subject to the regulations set forth in Article 3 of the chapter. The first sentence just declares Havens Beach, which is not specifically defined in the law. I understand you have the GSI, but it should be surveyed out. And that's all it does, that sentence. Could include other beaches. In other words, Havens Beach, I know you got this, I don't know, GSI, I don't know if it's a legal document because it's not certified. Havens Beach could be considered going east along the beach. And that's known as Havens Beach too, getting in down towards the Shaw Roads. It does not give the reason why Havens Beach is declared a municipal beach by either ownership by the village or because the village manages the beach, or both for that matter. And it says such lands, like other private beaches managed by Sag Harbor. Now let's see how the law defines just the word beach. This is from your revised law. For purposes of this chapter, all regulated beaches shall be public. That's quite a loaded statement, like in managed, authority over, owned by Sag Harbor. Without actually defining managed authority, Sag Harbor could easily, just by that innocent definition, usurp our property rights, saying they have the authority or the regulatory regulation on it, or manage our beaches. The law must define the meaning of these words, which actually are used to define what a public beach is, not just because somebody puts the GSI map up there. You have to define what it means. You are defining a public beach as managed or have authority over by the village of Sag Harbor. And I understand the intention is to keep it on Havens Beach, but the next mayor decide managing a beach means something else. Or the next board of trustees may mean something else. This is very ambiguous. And consequently, I want to read this, which I sent an email to all the board, and I want it to be public record. If somebody decides to take the law as written, which is ambiguous, there's no doubt about that. You cannot, I'm glad you can tell me, Mayor, that it just has a Havens Beach. The law does not. So if somebody comes along and sits there and decides we manage this beach, like mine or my neighbors to the east of us, this is what the implications of that would mean. I realize public access to beaches and privately owned beaches are a thorny issue, but that is why the village manages Havens Beach for all. This law as written is not the answer for multiple reasons. And some of these are just on personal because of my property situation. The law allows basically all of the public access to private beaches and private land. And I put those together because we're talking about private lands now. They are a beach, but it's private. Therefore, the law greatly exposes my family to suing if any action would occur on the private property or beach. 2, the law decreases the value of my home and rental income from the same if I choose to rent. 3, the law increases my exposure to adverse possession suits and losing my rights to my own private land beach. Law opens up the possibility that people will use, because in the law, one of these stipulations, I cannot enforce, they got to be able to get to it, that public beach. The law increases my, the law opens up the possibility that people will use the private Shaw Road to access private property beach, parking at the end of the road and blocking guaranteed ingress and egress to all property owners of the Shaw estate. The law increases my legal expenses to enforce that guaranteed ingress and egress to Hampton Road by property owners in the Shaw estate. It is a private road. Police officers cannot enforce it. Finally, the law opens up the possibility of my family being sued to permanently use the private road, Shaw Road, to access this private property or public beach. And it can be defined with your law as a public beach if some mayor decides they want to do that. And the only way I can go against that is to take somebody to court. In summary, the law is written, takes my land from me, exposes my family to legal entanglements, decreases land value, exposes a private Shaw Road to public use, misuse, with no enforcement possibilities. All this being done without a hint of due process and taking control of someone's private property. Basically, if you want to see the flaws in this law, instead of using the term all beaches or public beaches in the law, just substitute private property, because that's what we're talking about. And finally, I think my village with this law is opening itself up to multiple class action suits and expenses that very long in good standing Sag Harbor resident property owners don't need, don't deserve, is not established tradition, and taking control of the property that in many cases have been in their families for 75 years or greater. It's too ambiguous. I know your intention, but laws are not intentions. Because if it's based upon somebody's personal intention, it goes to court. I wish that somebody would revise this. Actually, the whole crux of it is you've put in the law managed, regulation, and authority, and haven't defined it. And you say if there's managed or your authority or your regulatory over a private property beach, this law can be interpreted as a public beach. And it states right in there.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
I'm okay. May I comment? This is Steve Williams.
Yes, Mr. Williams.
Okay, I will introduce myself also. Steve Williams, a long-term resident of Azure and currently the president of the Azure Property Owners Association. The beach is our asset, and I'm not going to repeat what Errol or Bruce said because they were both eloquent and very effective in what they're saying. I think one additional point of confusion for visitors or tourists or even year-long renters might be that some maps are not really well detailed as to the boundaries of Havens Beach. And a lot of them show Havens Beach running east of the property lines you illustrated here. So, you know, we have a lot of people who all watch Law and Order and think they're attorneys. And really, we don't want to ruin our quiet enjoyment by arguing somebody who's going to tell us why they have a right to be on our beach with their dog. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm fully in support of what these two gentlemen just said. And I think they were very clear in their reasons for the common concerns of waterfront lot owners east of Havens Beach.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, my name's Shannon Richards. I have my hand up. I'm willing to wait since I made a comment earlier to let others go first, but I would like to when there's an opportunity.
Sure, go ahead, Shannon.
Thank you.
Well,
Shannon
I'd like to
Richards.
have a comment.
Oh, please, by all means, I'll be happy to wait.
Hey,
Thank you.
Rebecca Young, Sag Harbor Hills. I own a property on the beach here, and we one of our concerns is the vehicular traffic. How does, if you could talk to us a little bit about that, because when it's at Havens Beach, it comes on to our beach. I'm a homeowner. And then continuing what everybody else was saying, how do we define these boundaries of private beach and public beach? That's it.
Okay.
There's no vehicular traffic permitted on the public portion of the beach. And the boundary of the beach is established by the deed that's recorded at Suffolk County. It's a meets and bounds system. And I don't know if you're able to see the image on the screen, but that will be posted on the village's website.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Denise, are you talking about the GSI map? This is Bruce Fletcher again.
Yes, yes, sir.
Is the GSI map a legal document, certified?
Is that the question?
Yes, the question is, you're stipulating that the boundaries are being determined by the map I'm looking at, which is a GSI map.
No, what I'm saying is
Oh,
this
good.
is,
Go ahead, clarify that.
no, that's okay.
One last question. I'm sorry. Is it possible that would the village be willing to post signs indicating the boundaries of Havens Beach?
That is a possibility. Yes, we can entertain that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Richards, do you want to ask your question and we can?
I would love to. Thank you. Again, Shannon Richards, 63 Terry Drive. several things have been mentioned that I would agree with, but one in particular I wanted to go back and revisit. I believe Mr. Mosley and Mr. Taylor had referenced the current draft revisioning for section 11, number 1. It reads, an animal may be transported through a restricted area to reach another destination. It is this language that I believe that the properties east of Havens Beach to Little Northwest Creek have the greatest exposure because, as it's been indicated, the beaches that are east of Havens Beach to Little Northwest Creek, for the most part, are all private property. There is no public access to any of that range of beach without going through private property, whether it be through, as Mr. Fletcher indicated, through Shaw Road, whether it be, as Mr. Taylor mentioned, through Nineveh, which are both private, or whether it be through the Azure Rest Property Owners Association's private lot and or Sag Harbor Hills. All that beach is private. So thereby somebody walking through it with their dog would be trespassing. That's not the issue. The issue that I believe many of our residents face is dogs and dog owners, of which I am one, walk down to Little Northwest Creek from Havens Beach because the strip of land that is north of the mean high tide line, or more pedestrianly, the seaweed line to the water's edge, is public. I have confirmed that with Sag Harbor's clerk, with Sag Harbor's attorney, with Sag Harbor's police chief and lieutenant, with Officer Miller, with the chief of East Hampton Animal Control. So when individuals vacate Havens Beach and step onto that strip of public beach that is north of the private beaches that align the bay, folks are fine. And I don't see where these changes address that concern. In fact, if anything, I think it defends it because you are putting language here that allows an individual to make an argument that they may transport through the restricted area of Havens Beach to get to that strip of public beach that I believe is for the most part administered by the town of East Hampton. To Mr. Williams' point about putting signage up, I would like to encourage the village consider restricting dogs on the beach strip entirely, including all of the public space, including the public land north of the high tide line to the water's edge, from Havens Beach all the way to Little Northwest Creek between the dates that you've outlined. As such, individuals lose that excuse during the high season to walk from Havens down to the creek with their dog. I appreciate your time. I have one last concern, and that is on the issue of control. So on page 5, 186-16 enforcement. It references section B, an animal control officer appointed by the village board. I'm unclear if the town of East Hampton's animal control officers are also covered in section A or in section B, because I have spoken to the Sag Harbor Village PD, and they've indicated when individuals are on the public strip of beach east of Havens, they are technically outside of the authoritative property of the village of Sag Harbor. 2 years ago, the village attorney confirmed that for me. As such, while PD will respond to try to de-escalate and ask somebody to walk essentially back to Havens Beach where they've parked, because otherwise would necessitate walking through private property, which in and of itself is a separate trespassing problem. The issue is the village, the animal control officer for East Hampton is the authoritative body for that strip between Havens and Little Northwest Beach, Little Northwest Creek, and their response time, much to their credit, is not reasonable for this area. I would simply like to encourage the village, look at the public land along the beach that extends east from Havens and figure out a way to include that such that it protects the property owners within the village during the time periods we're discussing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I believe we have an awful lot of comments on this, things to work through. So I would like to suggest we get a motion to table or continue, and we will look at all the comments that have been made, many emails that have come in. If there are other emails or any other comments that want to be made, if you can email them to info@sagharborny.gov, they will be passed around.
Kathleen, can I make one quick comment here? Parker.
John, yes, but we have an awful long meeting tonight.
I'll try to be quick. One, I just want to add that there's private beach between Havens Beach and Azure Rest, and there's beaches where actually every one of the property owners there have dogs. Every one of the property owners there walks their dogs across private beach to Havens Beach, and I think that that's being left out of this is that they would have a right to
Hey, Dan.
to
Hello, Christopher. I'm on a Zoom meeting. Can you call your mom?
Dennis,
Nobody's
picking up. Dennis, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you.
The other thing I want to mention is there's a revised version of the bill that Denise spent a lot of time making after there was comments made. I'm not sure that everybody has seen that, but it does clarify that this is that this is to address public beaches and not private beaches here. But the last thing I'd like to mention is we also have a number of I'll call them road end access points.
And those are not being considered in this bill, John.
Well, I understand that, but I'm suggesting that they should be, because any comprehensive look, which is the intention of this, should take those into account and should address whether they are beaches or not. The law doesn't say they're not being addressed because it refers to all public beaches. So that's just a question as to whether they should or not.
All right. Great. We will post the revised law that Denise has, as you say, worked very hard on to get us to tonight. That will be posted on the website tomorrow for anyone who has questions, but it still looks like we need to go back and answer some other things along with that. So can I get a motion to table?
I'll make the motion to table.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next one is a local law to modify the definition of structure in Chapter 300 zoning to clarify that commercial property access drive areas constitute coverage and should not be excluded when calculating the percentage of lot coverage on a commercial property. Is there anything that anyone needs clarification on this, or Denise, do you want to say anything on this?
Sure. If the board recalls, this was a request by the planning board to modify the definition of structure to make it clear that residential driveways are not counted towards coverage, but that commercial driveways and access ways should be. I think we got the request back in January, and it's just moved itself through the process until the public hearing tonight.
So can I get a motion to open the public hearing, please?
So moved.
Thank you. All in
Second.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Are there any public comments on this law?
Yes, this is Stephen Leffler.
Can you tell us where you live?
Sure, 68 Whitney Road, Sag Harbor, New York.
Thank you.
I have a request that I would hope that it would be considered that with reference even though I don't necessarily agree with this law or the provisions of it, that there be some sort of provision made to the law that when it is adopted, if it is adopted, that it excludes those applications which are currently within the pipeline. In my particular case, I have one that has been going on for quite some time that we've spent a great deal of effort and time and resources on. And by changing this law, adopting this law, which, as I said, I don't believe has much merit, it would greatly impact that. So I believe that anything which is currently in the pipeline that had been, applied for us quite some time ago, be exempt from any law changes to this. And I really don't see I don't see the need for this. I mean, all it really does is create an additional obstacle for anyone that is making an application for a non-conforming property. I mean, there's not going to be a commercial property that you're not going to require parking on, and certainly ADA parking, parking lot for disabled people. So it just seems to create an additional obstacle for anyone that's trying to do that. And in so doing is putting more stress on the zoning board when they have to go and ask for a variance for that. I mean, Sag Harbor is not a planned community. So we're going to have non-conforming properties, and I believe that they're all part of the fabric of Sag Harbor. It's what makes Sag Harbor desirable and unique, and that's something that we don't want to change. And it appears to me that by doing this, all you're doing is creating an additional obstacle, which an applicant would have to go to the zoning board of appeal and request great relief, far above, and perhaps even set a precedent that a homeowner would be able to use. So it doesn't seem like it has much merit, and I don't think that you should adopt it. However, if you do, I certainly believe that the current applications that are in the pipeline be grandfathered.
We have anyone from the planning board who can speak to why they feel this is a necessary law?
Kathy Eisman is on with us tonight, and I know she has a comment about it.
Can
Actually,
introduce yourself, please, Kathy.
all right, Kathy Eisman, Nelson Pope and Voorhees, 70 Maxis Road in Melville, New York. I'm the planner for the Village Planning Board. My understanding, and this is from speaking with the past building inspector, Tom Priata, is that he had always interpreted the code to mean that a structure would include the access driveway when it's a commercial property, and that would not be exempted from the lot coverage calculation. And he had required folks to include that area within the coverage calculations in the past.
Well, in the past, I've had an application in front of the Zoning Board of Appeal where I was specifically requested to exclude that part of the access driveway, even though I had included it originally in my application. It seems that what this adoption of this law, you're trying to take something that exists in a commercial part of the village or exists in the village business, and then applying it to something that would be in another area, perhaps in residential or waterfront or some other place. So it seems like an unnecessary impediment to that particular property, which is a pre-existing non-conforming lot.
I think that one of the comments that the planning board members made was just that typically the size of an access drive and parking area for a commercial lot is substantially larger than it might be for a single family residential property, thereby leading to greater coverage. And so coverage was really the issue. How much space on the property was going to be taken up with impervious surfaces that would cause additional runoff, especially in a residential neighborhood.
Okay, I understand that, but again, Denise, it doesn't seem that it doesn't seem that anyone would have a commercial property where you would not have to provide parking and consequently have access to that parking through the driveway. So, well, again, I go back to what I originally said. It just seems to me that it just creates an additional obstacle for the applicant to go in front of the zoning board, and it's just another obstacle, which doesn't seem that it should be necessary.
Understood.
Trustee LaRocca?
Quick question. We're just opening a public hearing here, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Loeffler, what would you define as in the pipeline?
Meaning that you've submitted an application, that it's
Submitted
currently under review by the various boards, but no decision has been made for any number of reasons.
Okay, so a demonstrable opening of a file by a submission. They're stamped and logged and all of the rest. Okay, what we've done on some of these other things is we've looked to see how many current applications might be affected by a change. I would say between now and when we come back to this, if we could have the building department just tell us how many applications might be already sufficiently in the pipeline with a stamp to at least consider exemption from the changed requirement if and when we enact it. And I think that could give us an opportunity to move ahead right now, which is that we have reasonably accounted for people in the pipeline in other circumstances. And that might be the case to be made here. And the discussion on the merits of the actual change we want to make can be in as we go forward in the public hearing.
All right.
All right. Are there any other comments? Okay. Can I get a message? No, I'm sorry. Can I get a motion to table until we get the information from the building department, please?
I move to continue the public hearing and while inquiry is made of the building department and council on these two questions.
Thank you. Second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, the local law establishing the moratorium to temporarily suspend the planning board's authority to grant site plan, special exception use, and subdivision approvals affecting parcels of land depicted on a certain map entitled Waterfront Planning Analysis Study Area Map, prepared by Nelson Pope and Voorhees, dated August 11th. This was approved by Suffolk County Planning. So if I can get a motion to open the hearing.
So moved.
Thank you. Seconded by Aiden. Beth, all in favor? Aye. Are there any public comments on extending the moratorium? We are been given a 6-month extension by the Suffolk County, but they have asked that we try to do it sooner, as have I. So we're working on it.
I just think we want to reflect in the language of the resolution what the extended date is.
I agree. That would be.
I think I put it to August. I think it's August 1st.
It says August 11th. Yes.
I'm
August
sorry.
11th, 2020.
2021.
Yes, 2021. Good point. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Wait, I'm wrong. That was the date of the map.
Oh, okay.
So it's probably
be-
in the actual.
I think it's August 1st, if I remember correctly.
Well, it was to be March 1st initially.
Yeah.
Right.
So March,
So
April.
add 6 months to that, and that's the date.
It'll be August.
That's only 5 months.
Is it 5 months?
September 1st.
Oh, September 1st. That's right.
September 1st. Good. That makes more sense.
Okay.
Well, I'll move it subject to that amendment.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, Mayor, one moment. Did we close the public hearing on that?
No. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor, yes.
Aye.
And now, motion to adopt.
I move it subject to the amendment.
Right?
Second.
All in favor.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, the next continued public hearing. That was it for.
Excuse me, Mayor, I think we may have missed, did we skip transitional yards? Number 6?
Yes. Yeah, I don't think we did that one.
We did skip that.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I marked that one as tabled for the coverage lot. Okay, a local law to modify chapter 300 to expand the requirement for transitional yards between commercial and adjoining residential uses to apply in residential zones in addition to commercial zones. Can I get a motion to open the hearing?
Move.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Favor?
Aye.
Please, do you have any
So-
comments on this before we start?
Yep, so this was another request from the planning board. The way the code reads now, it establishes or mandates that commercial uses that are adjacent to residential zoning districts have to have required buffer areas of 15 feet in between to give afford the residential neighbor protection. However, that provision does not apply in a residential zone where you have a pre-existing non-conforming commercial use. So the planning board thought that that's probably the area where it's most important for the residential neighbors to be protected, is when you're buying property in a residential zone. So they would like that, what they perceive to be sort of a loophole or an oversight closed up.
Do we have any public comments on that?
Denise,
Yes,
question,
this is-
does this have a counterpart in the overlay proposal?
In terms of mandatory buffers, but
This specific requirement?
I think so.
Do I correctly recall that in the draft of the code changes for the overlay district, this provision is included?
I honestly can't answer that. I'm sorry. I don't know.
Okay. All right, well, we can find that out as we go.
There were setbacks, Jim. I'm not sure if they were called transitional yards.
I just wanted to see if there was some connection between the two.
Right.
Oh, no, sorry. They were totally separate.
Okay.
Joe Loeffler?
Yes, this, once again, this, I don't really understand the reason for this either. However, in the event that you are to adopt it, I would request that any of the applications that are in the pipeline currently be exempt from this regulation. The Architectural Review Board does a very good job of ensuring that when situations like this arise, that the landscaping is sufficient to block anything, even though a particular setback from another yard is not necessarily defined when they do it. I think that they've done a very good job in the past, and I don't see the need for this regulation to add another level of complexity to one's application. The Architectural Review Board is very strict, and I think that they've done an excellent job, as well as the Zoning Board has done a very good job in the past at regulating non-conforming properties. I mean, no one goes through Sag Harbor and looks at a property and says, oh, gee, how did that happen? It's non-conforming. They're more apt to walk through or to drive through a neighborhood and say, oh, well, look at that house. It's out of place or something like that. But I personally have never heard anyone saying, gee, how did that happen there? So in terms of the impact that this has and the appropriateness of it for what you're trying to achieve with the village, I don't see it. I think that what can be achieved through the proper landscaping regulated by the ARB is more than sufficient and has been sufficient in the past.
I'm not sure if it's been entirely, I mean, I know that it was a recommendation in your prior ZBA approval, or I think it was a requirement in your prior ZBA approval for you to have transitional yards as well. So I think it's a similar issue, just to protect residential neighbors that happen to be next door to commercial neighbors, whether they're in a residential district or a commercial district.
Well, I understand that, but then again, if you're unable to achieve this set amount, then you once again have to apply for relief. It's an additional obstacle whereas if you were able to demonstrate that you have the proper screening through foliage and other landscaping that you choose to do and that the ARB requires, that could be done without it necessarily being an enacted law. And in any event, applications in the pipeline should be exempt.
We'll look again at the applications in the pipeline. We will also, for bills like this in the future, Denise, I think we have to have someone from the planning board or the zoning board or whoever has requested it to be here to talk about really what those needs are.
Well, that's why I
Trustee
asked Kathy to be on tonight, but you mean a planning board member?
Yes.
Okay.
I just have a technical question. Perhaps I should know this, but what is a transitional yard? Could you just describe that to me? Because I'm unfamiliar with that.
It is a buffer yard that's required between a commercial lot and a residential lot. Right now, the way it works is it's only applicable if it's a commercial zoning district up against a residential district, so that it's, the reason they call it transitional is because you are literally transitioning from one district to the other. But it does not help you if you are already in a residential district and you're a house that happens to be next to a commercial property, then there is no transitional or extra buffering required between the two.
Do we have an example in the village that might illustrate this in a way?
For example, the gas station on 114 abutted several residentially zoned properties that didn't.
And they had quite deep, if I remember, they have plantings, and I don't know what the depth is from the curbstone to the fence, but
yeah, so
They
I
have
think
a full acre.
But yeah, I'm just wondering about the distance where they've planted from the active part of their property to the neighbors. If I drive in there, I look to the right, I know there's a house there. Is that a 15-foot setback that they have planted?
Yes.
And is that considered to be a transitional yard as far?
Yep. Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor, I move we consider this and the previous item in tandem and put them on the same schedule. We're dealing with the same set of issues. And as you already pointed out, provide for coverage for those already in the pipeline.
Agree. And so we need to close the public hearing. Actually, I guess we don't in this case. We need to just
move that we continue the public hearing, continue the discussion, do it in tandem with the item number 7, and bring them back together.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. A local law amending Village Code, Chapter 265, Vehicles and Traffic, to implement paid parking regulations and provide for the necessary equipment to enforce said regulations and to modify the penalties section for each chapter. That is a fancy way of saying paid parking on Long Wharf. Trustee Corish, you want to give a quick overview of what the latest and greatest plan is?
Sure, I'll do a very quick recap. It hasn't changed since we last convened. We're talking about paid parking is proposed for Long Wharf only. It'll be active from May 17th through October 12th from 10 a.m. to midnight. It will be free for first responders. There will be no charge for first responders. First hour of parking will be free for everybody, and all subsequent hours will be charged at a rate of $4 per hour. After 10 a.m., a parking session must be initiated regardless of the intended length of stay. All parking sessions initiated before 6 p.m. will be for a maximum of 3 hours, and those initiated after 6 p.m. will be for a maximum of 5 hours. Parking payment will be by credit or debit card. Payments are made via the smartphone Parkmobile app or by dialing the Parkmobile 800 number. Telephone for this purpose will be available at the Harbor Master's office on Long Wharf, and appropriate signage will be installed. We will install 4 free 30-minute spots as we have on Main Street along the parallel parking side on the east side as you enter Long Wharf to serve the retail establishments there. And the funds for this parking, I think this is very important, will be, as always, as we have always maintained, will be ring fence for transportation planning, sidewalk repair and installation, surface floodwater mitigation, cycling lanes, street furniture, and other transportation infrastructure related projects.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Do we have any?
I have a question. Was there something put in the law that there were only so many first responders per household that were entitled to the free parking? Or is that?
No, every first responder, we recognize, Tom, that some households thankfully have 2 or 3 first responders. So every
Okay.
first responder is entitled,
Okay.
regardless
Thank
of
you.
the number in the household.
Thank you, Aiden.
We have any other comments? Trustee LaRocca.
Yes, as my colleagues know, I distributed a memo in the last couple of days looking for some amendments to this, which I think my colleagues are prepared to advance. The first was we've talked about having reduced the original proposition down to just Long Wharf to see that as a pilot, if you will, for what we might do in the future. And I would like to propose that we add a sunset provision in here. I would call it at the 12/31/21, and we would come back to it then if after a season and a fall, we want to continue it into the future. My second amendment that I would offer would be to provide explicitly that the funds for the purposes that Aidan just articulated be strictly segregated and dedicated to a fund for infrastructure renewal as defined by those uses, and the lawyers can work up the language, but that this money go for that purpose and that purpose only, because it's the nature of public monies that wind up in general funds to wind up in a lot of different uses. And for this to work, I think we have to, we're in good faith, but to lock it down with a specific reference and spend some time with Tim McCulloch, our new treasurer, on how this would work. It's less complicated than I thought it was in terms of protecting it legally and providing for its application to these specific infrastructure needs. My third element for amendment is to express in this that we want the village to, and it flows from the segregation of these funds, to be able to use those revenues to finance capital projects. And that very often means the ability to issue debt instruments against that revenue stream. Revenue anticipation notes, bonds, comparable kinds of fiscal instruments are very common in municipal finance, and I would like that to be expressed in this enactment now, because honestly, I'm fearful that this would get away from us if we don't put all the pieces in place on day one. And finally, I added that the fund itself should be making quarterly reports to the mayor and trustees once it's enacted. A fifth element, if you will, is it'll take time for that fund to, less time than I would have thought, but for that fund to be articulated and set up. I know that there's a sense of urgency. My colleagues want to get this moving in time for the season. So that we provide that the any funds we begin to receive, any revenues we get before the fund is fully established, be nevertheless separated and held for that fund, so that we can get the mechanics in place and the structure in place, but we do that. I think if we can put those elements into this, I know I've been the crankiest on this matter of paid parking, but I want to be in league with my colleagues on this. If we do this pilot for a year, that we segregate the funds, I think we'll have a much stronger basis on which to make the long-term decision about whether paid parking works for us for the purposes we wanted, and if it finds acceptance in the community. My sense is it's not fully accepted in the community by any means. So I would propose those as amendments. I would appreciate a second for discussion and ask that we consider that as we go forward.
Jim, I appreciate your amendments, and I'm very much in agreement in 2, 3, 4, and 5. The prenup, I have a tough time with because I don't quite understand what would trigger what would trigger dissolution? We want a sunset clause, but I think to have a sunset clause, we need to be very careful in how we define that. What would trigger the sunset? And so if you would be willing to drop the sunset right now, I think we're all reasonable people here. If we see this as not being something that is workable for the village and as something that turns out to be more trouble than it's worth, and none of us want that, and that we would certainly revisit it. But an automatic sunset on something that might be working for some technical reason, I would find difficult to vote on. The other four aspects of your amendment, I could certainly weigh in behind and would support those.
I would just say in defense of sunsets, which I've never heard called prenups before, but I like that. Commonly used to federal, state, other governments. When there's not a sentiment for a full sunset, which means it basically runs out of gas on a certain date that the law expires unless renewed, is to provide a review provision that says before, at the end of a year, there will be a review and it's described in some form. Very often it's to create a commission for that review. We're too small for that kind of elaborate structure. But I just want to provide that there be some process for a comprehensive review. Did it do what we wanted it to do? Did it work? Did the community accept it? And I think if a soft sunset, if you will, I think can work without putting it at risk.
I could certainly do that because I think it's our intention to review this anyway. And so this might give us the impetus. I'd like to hear what maybe some of the other board members feel, but I could weigh in behind this.
I think what Jim is asking is reasonable because I think I wouldn't call it a sunset where we have to completely, drop it. But I think that I think we all feel the same, that after this goes on for a year, we'll just review it and see what we did, what we can improve, and if it's working, if it's not working. So I think that we all had that sentiment going into this, is that this was going to be a pilot project on the Long Wharf. And if we were successful there, if we have any issues to work out, we would. If we wanted to extend it, we'd have to have that discussion. But I think that that's reasonable.
I think it's reasonable too, but I also know how we work, so I am hesitant to have a December date on it. I would rather have a year date so that we revisit it. I mean, if there is a date at the end, it's more of a March, April date than a December date, just because I don't want to get us locked into a rush at.
Let's call it April 1, perhaps. So we're almost upon the 1st of April, so April 1. There is one other element to this story I want to raise, and that is we have said, and in various ways, that particularly as the proposal narrowed to Long Wharf and the pricing and all of that changed, that we weren't going to do any other paid parking during this period. And I think it's very important that we are prepared to live up to that. I don't know that we have to legislate it per se into this, but I think we ought to express to this community that we will not be attempting to enact any other paid parking during this first year.
I think that's very fair, Jim, and I like the mayor's compromise of April 1st. I don't see us wanting to enter into any other paid parking during this. This is our experiment. This is our test. And before we have the results in, I don't think that we should be moving ahead with anything else. So I would be willing to I don't know if I'm seconding or proposing or.
Well, I still have one more question on Jim's things. Jim, your comment about using the funds to help finance bonds and things like that, while that may be for a big, large infrastructure, I still do hope to be able to use some of these funds for smaller projects like sidewalks or bikes or things like that, so it may not be, the fund may not grow as quickly because do think there will be times where we want to use the funds for smaller projects along the way, not just giant infrastructure.
Right, and by expressing the ability to finance against the revenues, and maybe it's a matter of drafting, I'm not saying we don't use revenues pay as you go. In fact, perfect combination is that you have your revenue stream against which you can plan ongoing. The trick there is to not use it for operating, but for improvements, capital improvements. And I would think a lot of our work would be less than the mega projects that would require financing. I think that's a matter of clarification, in which I agree.
Okay. So
If we do that, will that delay the implementation of this?
That's what I'm just about to ask Denise as well. You're very garbled, Bob. I'm not sure. With these amendments, can we take a vote and move forward this evening?
No, I'd have to revise the local law and we'd have to put it out for public hearing.
We will not make our deadline for this if that's the case. We will not be able to sign a contract and be ready to go. So we can do
How
one of
much
two
do you
things.
need, Denise?
I'm sorry?
How much time do we need?
This is, we need 5 days public notice, because it's not as, did I put it in time?
No,
We were supposed to have signed the contract March 1st.
Are all elements of the amendment triggering this delay, or are there elements of the amendment that are included?
If any of those elements are put into the local law, each one of them would need a public hearing. So we do have your resolution that's on for later tonight, but that's it's a resolution. It's not a local law. That could be amended, but the local law itself would need to go for a second public hearing.
So the resolution is saying that we can sign the contract.
The resolution sets forth all the prices, the times, all the specifics of how it will work. Because that's something that you would change on a yearly basis, whereas what you put in the law is usually what you want to stay, constant from year to year.
But we can't sign the resolution without the law having been passed.
Right. Yep. That's right.
I think everyone's pretty much in agreement that that's where these funds are going to go. And I would hate to delay this a year just to define that.
Yeah. Just so we can approve. And
Would you be comfortable with this?
Attach it.
I think we're on the record, we're here in public. We can make a moral commitment to enacting those additional elements of the local law as soon as the calendar allows. And I think we proceed in good faith so that the mayor be empowered as of the resolution tonight to go ahead and put the architecture in place. And we could come back either 2 weeks or 4 weeks with those amendments to the underlying. I'm good with that. I think it'd be a good way to demonstrate our good faith.
Thank you. Okay, in that case, would you like to make the motion?
Are you taking any public comment?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Steve. I thought we had public comments already. I thought I had to ask for it. Mr. Williams, go ahead.
My only comment is that from a view from afar, to tie the revenue to be used to finance public revenue bonds for a pilot project, somehow it seems inconsistent in thought. And I would think that you might want to run your pilot. If you find it successful, you won't have enough money to finance any public bonds anyway at that point, and then you can make that amendment then. But right now, if I pick this up in the Sag Harbor Express, I said a pilot project, but you're talking about using revenue bonds, they seem inconsistent. Thank you.
Good point. Jim, I don't know.
Let's see if anybody else have anything.
Yeah,
Tracy Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say that I'm in favor of paid parking and I'm fine with it on the Long Wharf. I'm glad that there is going to be some kind of time to review this afterwards to see if in fact people are pushed more towards Main Street when they drive down and they see they have to pay where we are. But I also want to put in one little comment that just selfishly, I'm not sure that September and October are necessarily a great thing for as late a time as you're saying. As someone who comes out of the theater very late at night or after 11 o'clock at night or 11:30, it's quite desolate there. And so at night when I know I need to be working late, I actually do park there at night. I'll come in at 10 o'clock after a lot of people have left, and it's not hard to find a spot at that time of night. And so I just say from personal safety perspective, it's a little concerning to me, but beyond that, I see no issues with it. And I'm actually glad that we're implementing paid parking.
Thank you. And you will have your free spots in front of Bay Street. The 30-minute free, at which at 10 o'clock will be all free.
May I say something? This is Stephen Leffler again. May I say something about not necessarily this, but it relates to it, because I believe that this whole concept evolved out of the problem that that the village has had from time immemorial with reference to parking. And the way that I see it is, in order for the village to get its arms around parking, it has to address traffic flow. And it doesn't seem that any of these proposals that I've seen, they want to implement parking, paid parking, this, that, and the other thing, but it doesn't address something as simple as the traffic flow through the village. And right now you have the wild, wild west in the middle of the summer out there. You have people crossing the divider to get a parking space on the other side, and they go round and round and round on Main Street in order to find a parking space on Main Street. And, we only have so many roads. It's a finite problem. And I believe that if you were able to address the flow of traffic through the village, you might alleviate a great deal of the problem of of parking by directing that traffic to the areas where we're able to provide the parking. So this just came to mind some time ago, and I just want to run it by you. If you were to, for example, direct all of the traffic that came over the bridge and turned right, instead of it being able to continue down Main Street, if you directed it to turn right by the laundromat there and continue and have it, then that traffic would be able to park in any one of those parking lots, municipal parking lots there, or the National Grid property, if we're so fortunate to be able to get that. And then of course, the traffic that would come down Main Street would be one way from Main Street. You'd be able to put in diagonal parking on either side that wouldn't be in opposite directions, and create little areas for trucks and whatnot, all with a bunch of concrete blocks, and you paint a few lines. It's a relatively inexpensive method. And just the same way that you're attempting to do parking, your paid parking on Long Wharf, this doesn't have to be forever. If it doesn't work out, you move the concrete stanchions and put it back the way it was. But I know that making Main Street one way is a bold move, but in order to get our arms around parking, we have to be able to direct we have to be able to direct traffic, and it's going to require a bold move. The thing is, it could be temporary.
I think we all substantially agree with you. Tonight, you'll hear a couple of other traffic calming, or not traffic calming, but traffic solutions that are coming up. But we also are hoping to do a major traffic plan for the village, and I would be delighted to reach out to you and see if you'd like to be part of that, because that is the kind of thing we do need. Some big new ideas for traffic in our village, without a doubt.
Thank you.
Are
I'd
there
be
other-
happy to participate.
Good, great. Anyone else? Okay, can we close the public hearing?
Make the motion to close.
Thank you. And can I get a motion to vote? With the idea that we're coming back with amendments, but we'll vote for the time being. Thank you.
I'll
Second,
second. I'll second.
all in favor? Thank you very much. Okay. That concludes our local law portion of the evening. We still have a long way to go, I'm afraid. We have to approve minutes. Can I do this all in one big group?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Move to approve the minutes from the special meeting held on February 5th, the regular meeting held on February 9th, the special meeting held on February 12th, the grievance day held on February 16th, and the minutes from the work session held on February 24th. Can I get a motion? Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The minutes are approved. Okay, Valerie, do we have, oh, sorry, treasurer's report. Tim, I'm glad I saw you pop in. Can we get a treasurer's report? The trustees have all had it in their packet if there are any specific questions. Otherwise, Tim, if you could just give us a quick summation of, are we good or are we in trouble or where are we?
No, we're just about where we should be. You know, our spending is up from the prior year. This is as of January. Revenues, again, are on point except for Justice Court and sewer are down from the prior year. You know, any other questions I'll be happy to answer, but that's pretty much, we seem to be on point as of January 31st.
And how will we deal with the fact that costs are up and revenues down?
Well, from what I see in the prior years, I mean, we usually do run a surplus and we don't tend to use our fund balance as we budget for. So I don't foresee a big problem. We do have, you know, a nice fund balance if we do need to dip into it, but I doubt the way that everything seems to be going. I think the harbor revenue's up, but there are other revenues coming in that are going to pick up for Justice Court and the sewer, for sure.
I think, Kathleen, the sewer will come back if vaccination goes as planned. I think we're going to have a very busy summer. Restaurants are going to be open to 75%, I believe, within the next 2 weeks. So we hope that forward progress continues. And, you know, the majority of our revenue is during the summer season and into the fall. So, you know, I think we might see it. That was a blip, that downturn, and we'll be back firing on all cylinders again.
I got my shot tonight.
Congratulations. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
Moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Approved.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the status of the waterfront overlay district revisions. Taylor and is Valerie on?
Mayor, Valerie had to leave the meeting, so I'm taking over.
All right, Kathy, if you can, as quickly as we can do it.
I am here tonight because at the February 24th meeting, Valerie went through the summary of public comments and the waterfront committee's recommendations for what revisions should be included in the final draft of the local law for the waterfront overlay district. And we just didn't want to leave it until we come back on the end of this month, March 24th, to present the recommended final draft. That will be posted on the village website on the 19th of March. And we'll be back to go through the changes and to go through the recommended code for the waterfront overlay district. The other thing I wanted to bring up with all of you is that we are in the process of going through the use table. That was one of the bigger comments that we wanted to look at the retail uses that were being proposed in the office district within the overlay. That was something that was looked back at in 2008. So we are looking at a number of those uses that to be special exception uses, and also putting a size limitation on the retail uses that are in the office district, over and above the 2,000 square foot maximum. So we believe that making those special exception uses gives the planning board an additional level of review to make sure that they are compatible and so forth with the general special exception criteria. And having that additional 1,500 square foot size limit will make these the type of businesses that are, more local businesses and meeting more local needs. So anyway, that's really what I wanted to say. We did get comments on the TDM, and we will be presenting the input that we received on the TDM to the Waterfront Committee tomorrow, and bringing those recommendations back to you on the 24th as well.
TDM for everyone stands for
Transportation
Demand
Management.
Felt a lot, what?
All right, is that it?
That's really all I wanted to update everyone on, and also to just make sure that we didn't miss anything from the public summary comment from the Board of Trustees that was circulated earlier this week.
Yes. So does the board have any other comments or questions for Kathy? Yes.
Not for Kathy so much, but just my own agonies. We have this week's summary pages, very nicely done. It's a big document for us, 30 pages or so. And it points me in the direction of being concerned. I see this as an elaborate piece of legislation. And most legislative processes provide for a markup process. We've not done that or had to do that on anything in the time that I've been a trustee, these 5 or 6 years. And just before I came, there was a previous code revision effort, and that had built into its process some markup process. The processes we're working in now and the formats, I think, going to make it very difficult for us as a body to basically go line by line through a document as important as this is for making changes, improvements, changes, markups, all of those things that you do in perfecting a piece of legislation. So I'm just raising tonight my concern that I don't know how we're going to get that done in a way that is consistent with other efforts like this that I've been involved in my time that make for a better outcome. This is a collaborative effort, of course, and I've along the way already seen edits that I've spoken about. Some have been responded to, some not, and so forth. So I'd like us all to just think about what this process should look like from here to the finish line. I don't know that what we're doing is going to be terribly effective in terms of really getting the outcome, the product that we want.
Well, Jim, one of the reasons that we're here tonight is because 2 weeks ago, we had sent out the document with the changes, the 30-page document. You said you had not had enough time to review it, so we felt that was fair, and that's why we're back tonight for questions. But
Kathy, do you think something like this needs a special session of the board where we actually go through the document together, like as Jim said, in a line-by-line format at some stage, so that we can all be on the same page about there's a lot in there, and there's a lot of nuance in there, and I often wonder, is our understanding of various aspects of it the same? Or am I picking up one part of it and Jim might take, or you might take another meaning out of something? And I think it's, it is going to define the waterfront, which is the most important aspect of the village. So sometime within the next 5 months that we have the opportunity to have a special meeting where it's purely to go through the document, because I think Jim does raise a good point as to how
in asking for the extra time, as I bore down on what I've been able to look at so far, it points me in the direction of wanting a real markup process rather than I come back with my little bundle of thoughts, and the others do. There are sort of practices that have evolved in other places of how you do a complex regulatory or legislative document like this. And I'm not offering a perfect solution to how we can do it, but I think we need to have something more than what we're doing.
All right, I would have to say that, time is of the essence. If we had a year or two, yes. And I agree generally that we should review it as a board. But there's a limit. What does they even say? Don't give up good enough for perfect or something like that. There's no such thing as a perfect zoning code. And that's just a given. That's a fact of nature. And therefore, I agree that we should review it. But I also think that at some point, we have to just pull the trigger and see how it works out. Because different people interpret different sentences different ways. And that's the nature of the beast. And I don't think there's such a thing as a perfect code. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this now.
So our March meeting, March 24th, is when the code will be presented to us line by line. We will have it in what date before that, Kathy? How many will have that?
The 19th of March is when we will be posting it to the village webpage.
So we will have had from the 19th to the 24th to read it ourselves. It will then be presented to us line by line. I'm more than happy to do a second meeting beyond that if you want.
It depends, Kathleen, I think it would depend on how much progress we can make at that meeting. Because we'll really be we'll be granular at that stage. We'll be really into the weeds. And, if we make enough I'd hate to put I'd hate to say we have to do this in 3 hours or 4 hours.
Well, it wouldn't be, it would be so that's, but do you want to do a special meeting or do you want to continue it is really more the question. Do you want to call, in addition to the 24th, do we want to call a special meeting or do we want to continue conversation at the April board meeting and continue conversation at the April work session? That's my question.
I mean, I would be in favor of a special meeting and maybe started earlier, so we're not starting at 6 o'clock and running on late into the evening, that we take, we could do a daytime meeting or something sort of out of the ordinary. We could do it on a Saturday morning or however we want to construct it. But I think Jim makes a really good point that it would be really great for us all to be able to focus on this and, in a day-long session or an evening session, however you want to do it, so that we all come away from this, and when we vote on it, we have a full understanding of exactly what the ramifications of everything are and what we're voting on, and to make sure that we're very comfortable with it.
I think that's fine. I'm happy we can do that. We can.
Do we want to wait till after the 24th to see what we need?
I think so. Let's see how much else is on there on the 24th, see how much we can get done, and then make the decision from there. Is that workable for everyone, Jim? You're muted.
You're muted, Jim.
Yeah, I would say something like that should work. I've often observed that we are an integrated executive and legislative body here. This is a very legislative function we're doing right now. And the tools, and Denise, I know you've been involved in that in various hats over the years. You know what a markup is. And that's what I'm talking about here, a markup session. I think a special meeting for that purpose is a good idea. We'll get some guidance for ourselves from the previous meeting. I don't think that's a publicly engaged, so we can be open to the public, but not, we don't need, we can't invite 30 editors, but certainly as we work, and I think it's at least a page by page process that we collectively need to do.
Yeah. I think that would make me feel much more comfortable about this.
Okay. Great. We'll make that work. Is there anything else, Kathy?
Nope.
Okay. Our next presentation is Pedal Share, Chris Dimon and Patrick O'Donohue. Chris and Patrick came to us through Suffolk County Shared Services. Southampton Town has already contracted with them, and they're going to tell us about what pedal share is and how it can work in our village.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the opportunity. I'll try to make this as quick as possible. I know you have a lot on your agenda tonight. I'm just going to quickly share my screen here if I can.
Chelsea, can we get Chris sharing?
Okay.
There we go. Great.
So just a brief background on pedal share. We started our program in Southampton Village in 2018. We started with 20 bikes, 5 stations, as a bike share program similar to City Bike, if you're familiar with that. We then expanded our program to West Hampton Beach and Quogue, and last year became the Suffolk County provider for bike share program throughout Suffolk County, and added stations in Hampton Bays, Babylon, and Patchogue. And we are expanding our program even further this year, more locations in Suffolk County, Southampton Town in particular, with 6 more locations on the eastern side of Southampton Town, and kind of figuring a way to connect Sag Harbor into this first last mile transportation solution. So I'll just kind of run through this. Our app is our program is run solely through our app, the Boom Bikes app. It's available on the App Store and the Play Store. We run our program from May 1st through November 1st every year. And we currently have 1,293 users and approximately 195 bikes. We will have this year, even now, it's actually going to be more than 45 stations throughout Suffolk County, and it'll be over 300 docks at each for each bike, and we've done over 2,000 rentals in the last 2.5 years. So we run a simple pricing plan of $4 an hour, $35 a day, and $59 annual membership, which includes 1 hour unlimited 1-hour rides. And then we do have other discounted rates and things like that for students and other demographics, that low income, that type of stuff, pricing plans that are going to be going into effect this year with Suffolk County. Basically, the way that the program works is you download the app, find the nearest station, find the nearest bike. You take your smartphone, then scan the QR code on the bike. The bike will unlock and allow you to take the bike from the station anywhere you would like to go, but it does have to return back to one of our stations. We call this a hybrid type bike share system. It is station based. You can, the bikes themselves are dockless. It's all geo-fenced within our app, but you do have to return the bike to a station. We do that for multiple reasons, mainly to keep the bikes organized and to make it so that bikes are not left all over the street. We don't want bikes on Main Street just sitting there. So a bike does have to be returned to one of our stations to end your ride. We have permanent and movable stations. The ones that we were proposing in Sag Harbor were the movable station options, which are a little more low tech than the permanent ones. However, none of our stations do require any infrastructure, utilities, that type of thing. The stations accommodate up to 20 bikes, but typically about 5 bikes per station. And on each station, we include, and this is particularly important in like the villages in Southampton and Sag Harbor, the laws on where you can and cannot ride a bike. I can say, for instance, in Southampton Village, you can't ride a bike down Job's Lane or Main Street. And all that signage is, all those instructions are provided on the signage itself at the station, as well as within the app. so we can actually geofence a certain area where a user is not supposed to be able to ride a bike. And as they enter that area, an alert would pop up on their phone telling them that they must walk their bike through that area. Let's see. Community benefits, transportation alternative. Again, with the local law education, what we do is, like I said, we'll inform our users of what the laws are within that jurisdiction. Last mile transportation. We operate this program at zero cost to the municipality. And obviously it's environmentally friendly and fun way to get around. This is a example of one of our station signs. As you can see, it provides the instruction, it provides the rates, as well as the local laws on where you cannot ride a bike. We do provide the data to the municipality, station heat maps, where people are riding bikes, and so we can help with. I heard earlier you were talking about bike pass and things like that. We can where people are actually riding bikes, and we can provide that information to the municipality as well. So system build out is very quick. We can build this program out and have it starting this year for our May 1st launch. We do all the maintenance ourselves, so everything is done through pedal share. Nothing is really required. What we request from the village of Sag Harbor would be just use of property to be able to put these stations on public property. The 3 locations that we did have in mind were Mashashamua Park, Havens Beach, and the Long Wharf. And these will be connected to our program that we're expanding in Southampton Town at Long Beach, the Bridgehampton train station, Sag Main Beach, as well as others. People, you technically will be able to take a bike from any location on Suffolk County to any one of these locations and vice versa. And then just our goal to expand the program throughout Long Island. Our goal is to really make bicycling an alternative transportation, and be the opportunity to finish the gap for first and last mile transportation. And so that's the quick overview of who we are. I'm sure you may have some questions, but I'd let you guys go ahead.
Thank you. That was great. I have one question for you. Would you have a local representative that looks after the East End so that if some of these bicycles were not returned to their appropriate spot, that there is some sort of oversight that would go find them and bring them back?
Yes, so the bikes would be reallocated on a daily or as needed basis. So we are able to tell where the bikes are at all times. So as a station fills up, we would then move bikes on I say as needed only because, in let's say in Southampton Village, for instance, you have a day where there's nobody that rode a bike that day. And so bikes don't necessarily need to be reallocated. Most of the time it is a daily thing, but we determine that based on the usage for that day. We do also, with COVID, Suffolk County as well is providing sanitizing stations at each of our stations. So there will be New York State Clean pump stations there. And during the reallocation process, we actually wipe down the handlebars, the seats, any area in which a user is touching the bike. We wipe those down during the reallocation process.
And is it possible if I could pick up a bike in Southampton and then drop it off in Sag Harbor, for argument's sake, so bicycles move outside of their zone, so to speak, or?
Yes, yeah, you can. Like I said, you could technically take a bike from Babylon Village to Sag Harbor Village if you wanted to.
Your car.
Well,
and everybody supplies their own helmet if they desire. You don't provide any safety gear.
We do not provide helmets. However, what we do is we try to encourage users to wear a helmet. Within the app, there will be multiple prompts in which they will, be told that they should be wearing a helmet. And then we also provide them with information on local bike stores that may have a helmet that they could then purchase.
Yes, so the app, when somebody opens the app, whether it's in Long Wharf or Havens Beach or even Mashmute Park, it would then have an ad for the bike store down on Bay Street saying, if you need biking supplies, helmets, locks, etc., go visit.
Right.
I don't remember their name at the moment, but go visit them and buy your
And
gear.
do the bikes have a battery? You say they don't need to be charged, but there's an unlocking function. What power is that? How does that work?
So in the back of the back wheel of each bike, there is a Bluetooth locking mechanism. That does run on a battery. That battery lasts. Usually, we change them out every season. So it's not something. But again, we are able to determine whether a battery needs to be changed, and we do that. But yeah, it's everything is contained. All the program, everything that is needed for the program to operate is functioned through that lock and the smartphone.
Great. I love it. Great. Thank you very much, Chris.
No problem.
Are there any other questions from the trustees or the public? But any questions, if you can keep them to less than 3 minutes. Great. So, Chris, we will take the proposal and we'll put together a resolution from here. Given that.
Great. Yeah. And if there's any other questions, feel free to reach out.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming and wading through.
No problem.
All right. Next in our transportation evening, we have Jack Brinkley Cook. He is the president of Rove, and he's going to talk about Rove Loop. So Chelsea, if we can get Jack sharing his screen. And Jack, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Jack Brinkley Cook. I am actually a resident here in Sag Harbor. Well, right on the cusp of Sag Harbor and Bridgehampton. I live on Brookkiln Road. Chelsea, would you let me know when I can prompt to share my screen?
Yeah, your screen will actually change in look, I think.
Okay. Okay, sorry, I am not that familiar with Zoom. I use Skype normally. Can you just let me know how to
That, or you know what, Chelsea, let me share my screen. I've got Jack's presentation in here somewhere. Give me
Sure.
just a second. Okay. There you go.
Cool. And Mayor, if you wouldn't mind just sort of fast forwarding and skipping to the how it works slide.
There you go.
Perfect. So, I'll try to keep this brief. As some of you guys may recall, we actually presented in front of the village board last year, about a year ago. But naturally, due to COVID, we had to put our plans to launch last summer on pause. So if it's okay, I'll quickly go through kind of what Rove Loop is and how it works. Rove Loop is a proposed micromobility project, company rather, that focuses on delivering passengers within predetermined zones in close range and for effective prices. So essentially how we work is similar to other ride shares that you guys might be familiar with, such as Uber or Lyft, only we provide rides for a flat rate of $10 and only to those looking to travel within a short distance. So within 2.5 miles of the city center of most municipalities. And like a normal ride share, it is a completely private vehicle. You hail the app via, you hail the car via an app. The car arrives to wherever your pickup destination is and drops you off wherever you determine you want to be dropped off. We intend to utilize an entirely electric fleet of vehicles, and we are hoping to put the program in place in Sag Harbor. We are launching this summer in Southampton and Montauk towns. Last year, when we had begun discussing the program with the mayor, the program was largely born out of the idea of creating a solution for traffic and parking issues in the village. And initially the program and one of the main things that we've focused on and are hoping to do is to utilize underutilized parking lots around the village, specifically the elementary school's parking lot, and potentially Pearson as well, to provide a place where people can park outside of the village for free and then be shuttled into the village for free. So as opposed to the other aspect of our business that will take on riders at a cost, if you were to utilize the parking lot in order to park and wanted to come into the village, that ride would be provided totally for free. Last year, we had a number of conversations with the school, the mayor, and we actually got pretty far, and it looked like everything was completely signed off on the school front. One of their main requirements was that the village supported the efforts by asking to have increased police traffic at night in the parking lots. But other than that, we kind of had gotten to the point of being able to utilize the parking lots. The one outstanding or the one area of support that we have been hoping for is the utilization of the electric vehicle chargers that were recently installed on the Long Wharf at night, from the hours of 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. in the morning to charge the vehicles. These hours will hopefully mean that there's there's plenty of available parking in the village, and it would be a tremendous help to the program, which in turn we feel will support mobility around the village and decrease traffic and parking on Main Street. So
Are there any other slides you need to see, or?
Honestly, I think that this is probably the most prevalent slide.
That's the type of vehicle we'd be talking about, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So the vehicle seats up to 5 passengers, 1 driver.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the trustees or?
No, I remember this presentation from last year. I think it's a great idea if we can make it work.
Do we still have time? Are we still in the ball? And could we do this year in summer of 21?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we're all squared away in the town of Southampton. We're finalizing everything with Peter Van Scoyek's office and the town clerk's office in East Hampton, hopefully within the coming week or so. And then we are ready to roll into Sag Harbor this summer. And that is our intent. Again, we have a couple of things that we have to put in place. And as a result, we do need to resume the conversations with the elementary school, as well as some other alternative parking lots and owners that we had discussions with last year. But we've just been kind of waiting a little bit to tighten up stuff on our end. But at the moment, it looks like we should be able to go. We're kind of aiming to have the program up by May 1st and an official launch of May 15th.
Great. So we will, you'll talk to the school and come back to us, and we'll put together the paperwork to make it official we can talk further if there are no other questions, and if everybody's thinking it sounds like a good idea.
And just one comment, Madam Mayor. Are there drop-off points that are not in the center of the village on Main Street? And pickup points, or are they free to roam and drop off people anywhere?
Sure. So with the paid service that operates more similarly to a classic rideshare, the format would be that users could request their own address and their own drop-off address. Like any other motor vehicle, we intend and completely plan on abiding by all traffic rules and regulations. At one point last year, during the presentation, we had discussed the potential for the shuttle program that will run from the school parking lot into the village to have a predetermined drop-off zone. At the moment, we were tentatively looking at various areas along Main Street, but we're open to really any areas if that's something that the town would like to see. We certainly think that it could be helpful to sort of have a predetermined drop-off and pickup zone that would allow for users to go to a singular place along Main Street and pick their ride up or get dropped off there rather from the parking lot. But we're flexible in that sense.
Yes, I think the idea, I honestly don't remember last year. I think it might have been the Jitney stop in front of the cinema and perhaps one down near Long Wharf. That sort of the first, by the windmill. So those would be the two pickup spots or drop-off spots within Main Street. But for the paid one, yeah, they can come pick you up, Steve, and bring you down here to Village Hall and bring you home.
I won't sit in the seats, but thank you for the offer.
All right. Okay, Jack, thank you very much. We will be in touch within the next week on next.
Yeah, this is great. I hope this happens.
Thank you, guys.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, our next is traffic safety and residents' concerns. And I know we have a couple of residents on the line. Peter, are you speaking for everyone, or? You're muted at the moment. Peter Acella, are you the spokesperson, or is there someone speaking? Yep,
can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can.
Okay.
Yep.
My name is Peter Acacella. I live at 14 Hampton Street. I've lived here for 30 years. Yes, there are 100 of us, and gratefully, I'm the only one they sent me tonight because the screen would have far more faces on it if they all showed up. Our committee was put in motion when a new resident, Whitney Casey of 10 Hampton Street, she just bought her house last summer, was nearly hit by a drunk driver while sitting in her home. The truck landed within a few feet of her. The curve on 114 coming from the harbor at the fork leading either into Division or continuing on into East Hampton. That curve is treacherous. In my time here, there have been I have been hit, either my house, my car, 5 times. The tree in front of my house has been struck. And this has been going on regularly, but it's stepped up now, I suppose, because of the increase in traffic, but also the what we so unaffectionately call the trade parade. There are, I would say that 4 out of every 5 vehicles coming up 114 in the morning is a truck. And these are people who probably don't live here and don't have the same regard for the community that we do. And they don't realize that they're driving through a residential neighborhood, nor does it seem that they care. A couple of years ago, a man driving a van at 70 miles an hour destroyed my fence and in the process lost his foot. So they've asked me to come to talk to you. Further down on 114, apparently there's also a similar problem also at a curve between Lighthouse Lane and Beach Avenue. We've been talking to Fred Teal, and it's our understanding that the DOT is going to repave 114 from Stephen Hand's Path to the ferry. Correct me if I'm wrong. And what we've gotten back from him are polite letters telling us that the DOT will be in touch. And we have not spoken to them. We desperately need traffic calming. At the very least, we need bollards. Those are, you see them in the city, they're boulders or whatever to prevent terrorists from driving into office buildings, but they can also be decorative. They can be disguised as planters with flowers. In front of Whitney's house at 10 Hampton, that's absolutely necessary to keep cars and trucks. I am fully expecting at some point to have a truck drive into my living room. So we're not safe. We have ceased to be safe. When I first came here 30 years ago, 114 was more like, I won't say it was as calm as Madison Street, but it wasn't anything like what it has become. And it's simply dangerous. A good start would be a village-wide speed limit of 20 miles per hour. Now, we've tried this before, and the pushback from the state is it's a state road, so you cannot reduce the speed limit to 20. However, they do so in the school district for part of the day. So why can that not be expanded to include the entire day? I watch in the morning when parents drop their children off at school. There are so many near misses when they try to leave their cars, and the oncoming traffic is the people are going 50 miles an hour. And I'm frankly surprised no child has been struck. So we need to do something about this. And I think a good start is the 20 mile an hour speed limit throughout the village. The state may give us pushback, but aren't we the state? I mean, we're not subject to bureaucracy. We are the state. And if we're not safe, then it's the state's responsibility to keep us safe. A second problem has grown on Division Street, where there are a number of trucks parked with regularity. If you go down that street, you'll notice this. And two-way traffic trying to pass when a vehicle is parked, and the speeding down Division Street is a problem. Alistair Hawker, who's co-chairing this with me, he's not with us tonight. His wife was nearly struck recently, and 2 trees have been mowed down by vehicles going down Division Street at inappropriate speeds. What he has recommended for Division Street is a stop sign at the inception of Division going south, where you leave 114 past Cilantro, and before you enter Division Street proper there would be a stop sign. And then at some point on the road, a speed hump, like Glover Street. So there's a precedent for that. We're not suggesting anything new. And that's about it. We need your help. We need your help in dealing with the state. And we need your help in getting the police to strictly enforce that 20 mile an hour speed limit when it is implemented. That's it.
Thank you, Peter. We have heard your letters and Alistair's letters, and we appreciate you coming to the meeting. I did get a call yesterday. We have a meeting in April with the state to talk about 114 and the speed limits and everything else. So that meeting has been set up for April 16th with myself and Assemblyman Fred Thiel. And we will bring that to them. We also have set up our radar machines on.
Yes, I know, yeah.
So what we'd like to do is Chief McGuire would like to set up a meeting with you and Alistair and myself, and we can do it by Zoom, or we can do it in person, whatever you want, and go through some of that speed data with you.
Oh, I can do that. I'm getting my vaccine Friday, so I'm up for a party.
There you go. Good for you.
Yeah.
All right.
I would like to interject here that I totally understand what you're saying. And it's a state road, and the state has certain criteria, degrees of curve and speed and shoulder widths and all that stuff. And those are pretty important. You can't really change those. I mean, you can try, but in my experience, it hasn't been. Traffic calming itself is the answer. The traffic calming is not a widely accepted or really understood concept. You really want to make the cars go more slowly, and that really is the solution to this problem. A lot of those cars are coming like from North Sea Road and then down Hampton Street and down to East Hampton. They're taking the back way instead of going through the Bridgehampton.
Yeah.
So the idea is, and it sounds counterintuitive, and it is if you're Robert Moses, and if you're not, it's like, well, no, we want to slow them down to the point where people figure it's not worth it going through Sag Harbor because it's a pain in the neck. But that's a big leap. I mean, I think that's personally a good thing, would be a good thing. But when you're involved with state roads, it's not that easy. And as a concept, it's sort of hard to get across to people.
Well, I'll tell you, do you remember that they did attempt it several years ago? I mean, that's how we got the streetlights. And they reconfigured the point at which you leave Division to come south. There's that right-hand turn off Division.
Right.
That's all new. So they reconfigured that. We've been there before. They just
they reconfigured it in a way that made it a more gentle curve. Well, what does a more gentle curve tell a driver? It says, you know what, I can go faster here.
Well, actually, it is not. If you've driven that, it's not a gentle curve at all because when you exit that, you wind up, your car winds up in the northbound lane. It's almost impossible to make the turn without going over the curb. So it was poorly formulated. And I go back to my point about it is a state road. Well, we are the state.
Well, actually, we're not, unfortunately.
No,
We're built
people are the state.
Go ahead, Tom.
No, I just wanted to say that this is a conversation to have with AJ when you guys sit down and go over this area. I'm concerned that Peter brought up a good point about the school zone. We now have Stella Maris, or the old Stella Maris building that's being used as a school. Yeah. And it would seem to me that, this is just me speaking off the top of my head, that if we continue that school zone past, all the way from the elementary school past Stella Maris to where the watch case factory is, if the state would agree to that, that could be one of the solutions to try to slow things down there. I don't know about the hours.
That's exactly what the ask will be, is from Hempstead to Washington Burke streets.
But it has to go beyond the school zone, because the school zone is only in effect during school hours as you drive in.
No, we'd ask for a permanent
20 mile an hour as a start.
And additional signs, including perhaps one of the what I like to refer as the blinky signs.
Well, the school has a blinky sign that's associated with school time only.
But I'll tell you, when driving into the village from Bridgehampton on the turnpike, right? When you see that sign, I always slow down to 20 miles an hour, and the people behind me invariably get pissed off. But I know there's going to be a policeman waiting someplace nearby. So I don't go much above 25 miles an hour as I make the right-hand turn onto Germain. And because we live here, because it's our home and these are our neighbors, we are careful about how we drive through the village. But an electrician from the middle of the island to whom 5 minutes means money is not going to be so predisposed.
We will work on it. We'll have a meeting with you and Alistair and AJ and myself before the April 16th meeting with Fred and I and the DOT.
Great.
And we'll get our ducks in a row on what we want to ask.
Thank you so much. And let me tell you, as a former co-op board president for way too many years, I appreciate the work that you do. Sitting through this meeting tonight, you deserve many kudos. Okay?
Thanks, Peter.
All right. Thank you. We'll be in touch.
Kelly Dodds, are you on? There you
Hi,
are.
I'm here.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Can you introduce yourself and tell us what you're thinking?
Sure. Okay, so I'm Kelly Dodds and I'm representing the Sag Harbor American Music Festival. And for those of you who are not familiar, we're a nonprofit, a 501c3 that's run entirely by volunteers. And we put on a festival every year. It's been at the end of September. It was intentionally put at the shoulder season. So, local people are more free to come out and enjoy it. And all of our outdoor activities are free to the public. And it's sponsored by, underwritten almost 100% by local businesses and some individuals as well. So this would have been in 2020 would have been our 10th anniversary season, but obviously we postponed. And so we're planning now for 2021, and we're looking at the weekend of September 25th and 26th. And, we're being really conservative in our projections, but we have to have some concept that's agreed upon between us and the village, that obviously has some leeway depending on any changes in the situation with COVID precautions from the state or from the county. But so I had sent our basic concepts to the mayor and the trustees to have a look at before we submit a permit, just to see what's viable, because, we want to be mindful. I mean, frankly, if it's raining and the weather's not good, it's not going to be an issue of too many people out and about. But the last couple of years, we've had really great weather, and we always plan for having the most people. We want to be prepared. So did you want me to talk about the concepts, or did you want to give me feedback?
No, just very broadly, quickly outline the concepts.
Okay, so typically we would have 2 days of free music from 10 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. So we're saying, let's reduce that as of now to 1 day. So it would be on Saturday, September 25th, because we want to have 2 main open stages, perhaps in Steinbeck Park, one in Steinbeck Park and one in Marine Park, utilizing the waterfront, and only have perhaps 10 performances that day that go back and forth from each location. So it reduces the amount of people hanging out in that area. And also, we would have open stages instead of tents, so that, would encourage the airflow, and just, it would be easier in that way, just to be more open. If people are spread out, if you're under a tent, the sound of the music isn't going to be good if you're standing outside of the tent. So we want people to be spread out and have that open stage. So that's why we would only do 1 day. If it rained on Saturday, it would be understood in our promotions that everything would move to Sunday. In addition to that, we would want to have pop-up performances of smaller groups of musicians. We don't have a specific number, but at this point, we're just thinking pop-ups would enable us to use other outdoor locations, like, we've had performances in the past at the Whalers Church, outside on the steps, at the Customs House lawn, things like that, in front of the library or in the library courtyard. So if they were pop-ups, we could say we could have a list of musicians that would be performing in pop-ups and a list of locations, but we wouldn't tell people when they were happening. We would, have them be either on our website or on our social media, say 10 or 15 minutes before the performance happens. It would pop up and say, in 10 minutes, Inda Eaton's going to be performing at the Whaling Museum, you know, come check it out. And so, you know, people might rush to get there, but it just helps to, with the flow of people, and we'd spread them out throughout the day so that we don't have this stagnant, you know, area where there's a ton of people hanging out. We keep them on the move. You know, we can't control where people decide to go, but we would want to employ additional, are run by volunteers, but we could have additional security, and we could have the 2 main stage concerts require advanced registration. So they would still be free, but people would have to register in advance, and we'd have a limited amount of spaces. Say, for example, we had hay bales blocking out 6 feet apart. So this is an area, so you can register for 4 people to be in this spot. And, you know, we'd have to have security and an entry point and an exit point, and those people would get armbands or something. But, you know, so we're just trying to be creative. That's our ideal situation.
Kelly, what kind of, when you say there's 2 stages that you want to do, Marine Park and Steinbeck, what is the stage?
I could send you a photo of one of them. I should have done that, but it would be like a stage that's built for an outdoor performance, not the town pop-up stage. It would be like, you know, it would be larger than that. Montauk Music Festival has used something like that.
To build, and how long would it take to get down, et cetera?
We like a tent. They normally would, if the tent we needed for Saturday, they would probably install it on Thursday, depending on, you know, the weather and whatnot. And then it would be taken down either on Monday or Tuesday of, you know, right after that weekend.
Sure. Anybody else have comments? Tom?
Kelly?
Yes.
Kelly, you spoke to AJ McGuire about this, and you guys talked about the event? And
we haven't. I've just started with you putting this out there to see if this is even, you know, I'm very mindful of the Village is not a huge space, and we're not a huge music festival. We're Sag Harbor sized. And frankly, this is the planning point. The scope of the music festival is really determined by how much sponsorship we get. So we might not be able to afford to do 2 stages. We might, you know, depending on how our sponsorship goes this year. But
so you really don't know what it's going to become right now. You just kind of have ideas that
we can say that, you know, we can absolutely do 1 day of music. I know we can do that, depending, you know, what kind of stage is it going to be, how much is it going to cost? Those are the variables. But our next step would be to meet with, you know, with AJ if he was available to talk about it. But I wanted to see if this was even a viable option for you, you know, before we moved into that.
I don't have any issues with it as long as public safety is addressed, and there haven't been any problems in the past that I know of. So more power to you, Kelly.
Thanks.
Tracy, I see you, but let me get the boards first. Trustee LaRocca, you're muted. I don't know if you.
Well, I agree with Tom. I think it's great. I think the Village could use some uplifting after COVID, and I think this would be a great way of introducing it. So as long as we can work out all of the technicalities and the health and safety issues, I think it's a wonderful idea. I wish you every good luck with it.
I would second that, and in our recent communication, I encouraged you to try to think about a 2-day affair. It's my favorite event in the whole calendar, and it's I can't think of a year where it didn't go well. It's been under all kinds of circumstances. We're talking about after Labor Day, and if you're even half optimistic about the way the country is proceeding, I think we could be a lot further back into whatever normal turns out to be than we might think. So if your planning can allow you to think about that 2nd day alternative with a little luck, I would encourage you. And I think the disposition in Village Hall is we want you to succeed with this. Certainly public safety and the other, just the logistical considerations are always there. But this has grown, and it's my observation after 21 years here that of all the events that come into town and come into Marine Park, a good bit of your program draws true East End folks, especially with Inda and Gene Casey and all those guys who have a big following. But once that there's so much critical mass there, it spills over into the whole thing. So you have my absolute encouragement, and hopefully it'll be able to. The system will support a 2-day event. One hopes.
Thank you. Yeah, as we go, you know, even as late as July, we can add in new elements depending on what, you know, what things are looking like. So we're optimistic, but starting out small.
Right. It's a good way to do it.
You wanted to join the conversation? You're muted. You need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you. I would just like to add that depending upon, again, where we are, as you said, Jim, come July, August, if there's a chance that things are looking good, and if by chance Bay Street extends out its tent, Kelly and I have already spoken about this. We would be happy to host them if we're able to extend our tent beyond Labor Day weekend, if we're blessed with it first, and then if we're able to extend it, and if we're all able to afford it. So there's a lot in play, but I would just say that Kelly and I have always worked together, and we've hosted the American Music Festival since its inception, and we'd be happy to do that again if all the variants are in place. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Kelly, I think it sounds like get your applications in. You got a lot of support.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Nihal Hakim, you are our last of our discussion items. You sent us a very thought out proposal about stand-up paddling at Havens Beach. I'm sure you heard all the Havens Beach conversation earlier today, but can you give us a quick rundown of what you're thinking? And this is really just for the board to hear it, ask questions, and then we will get back to you on what the next step would be. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for squeezing me in on what was a long agenda day. Appreciate it. So this is a new venture. It is a career change for me from a career in finance, and this is more aligned with where I want to be. And I've moved here now over a year ago.
Do you live here in Sag Harbor?
I live in East Hampton and in Northwest Woods. And basically what this is a stand-up paddle fitness fitness organization. So it's not it's not exactly as you think of stand-up paddleboard in the recreational sense. It is of course recreational, and of course it leverages the beauty of the waters that we have access to. But it is a marriage between fitness and stand-up paddle. And my request is to have a license or permit to do it on Havens Beach. So basically the components of this that I'm very committed to and will be the backbone of the business, but also are part of what the village and Sag Harbor and the East End in total can benefit from are just, things that, I've been planning for a while, but frankly with COVID have become very also prevalent, and the value prop from them has become enhanced. So it's the health aspect, it's being outdoors, it's the fitness aspect, it's bringing a community of like-minded people together, it's raising awareness to the environment and protection of the waters. It's raising awareness on safety on the water, because that will be part of the teaching, and it's giving back through some organized community paddles that are free for those that can't afford it, or cleanup paddles again to bring back the environment. So those are the big theme items, and the programming is going to be as such. I mean, this is under construction, but the program is going to be as such that it prevents overcrowding on the beach.
Can you like get a little bit faster to the crux of it? It's how many days a week, and it's classes, is that it?
It is classes. It'll be a maximum of 3 a day, but not every day will be 3 a day. So it'll, it has to really be a little bit based on demand. So there's going to be some shifting because it's a new business. It's probably going to be slower at first. But, we'll be around every day. And there will be some rental, some paddleboard rental program as well, together with the classes.
And this would, where would the paddle boards be? You would need racks or?
Yeah, so what I was envisioning was something that's easy and doesn't require any infrastructure. So I would retrofit a container, a 20-foot container, and we can establish where that can sit, where it doesn't interfere with anything on Havens Beach, and that can be retrofitted in a fun way with signage on the outside, and that will be the check-in. That will be where the paddle boards are housed. And like I said, that doesn't require any construction or infrastructure. It can be removed offsite easily if needed or in the off season.
And that Havens Beach parking is limited just to residents.
Yes, I mean that was part of my request is. If you guys see the benefit of this for the village and for the community in general, is there an agreement we can reach on the parking that would just benefit this, help me get this business set up, because people will need to kind of use the parking, and I understand it's the $10 a day, and I can build that into my price, but I think that the parking is something I wanted to discuss and see what we can do.
Yeah. Aiden?
I have a question probably more for Denise, and this goes back to the earlier presentation for the bicycle shares. What's the legal position of the village giving up village land space, leasing it, renting it for a period for a for-profit endeavor? Which I presume you're a company.
Yes, this is for profit. Yeah.
For profit. I am a little uncomfortable about that, and it was something that I guess we have to grapple with regarding the bike share as well, which I presume is a for-profit organization.
It could. I'll have to look at our procurement plan, but it could require an RFP where we go out to, we ask other individuals if they're interested in possibly doing the same thing on the same village property to make it a fair process.
Are there examples of for-profit activities? I know we have village property where people have rowing, etc., but they are, to best of my knowledge, they're nonprofit.
Right, that's correct. I'm trying to think. We have any now that can you think of any, Beth, that we have now that are for profit that we've gone out to RFP on recently?
You have those tour boats on Long Wharf. Does that count?
Which one?
No.
The day tour boats on Long Wharf?
Yeah, no. That
Yes,
one,
rent.
yeah, he's paying us to be there, right? So
Yes.
Would this be a rental situation? Would you be paying rent to the village for the use of the park?
Yes, I mean, I would be open to that because I think that's only fair.
Okay. I don't know where this fits and how our code may differ, but there are concessions on any number of public beaches that are for profit vendors who rent space, Sagmain, Ditch Plains, very often food trucks. Bruce Tate 30 years ago ran a small boat rental right off Windmill Beach. And these things have been commonplace over the years. But the key to that is it's a commercial arrangement. You are commercially leasing space with all the liability and coverages that have to go with that if we're disposed to do it. But I think there are examples around us where these kind of things do go on.
Yeah, and I imagine that would be the case anyway. Because as I said, I think that's only fair for the village.
I think Flying Point does something like that with surf lessons and surf schools at Flying Point and other beaches.
Tom?
I think that we have to be careful, very careful, when we start to rent out or support commercial endeavors on public property that's for use for the residents, and it should maintain open space and it should be there for the residents to use. I think you have a great idea there, but I just don't think putting a trailer or a container down at Havens Beach to store stuff, once we start going down that road, I think we're going to open up a can of worms as far as for the future. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what the legal ramifications are, but I'm just looking at it from a standpoint, from my position as a trustee.
And maybe I can ask, as we think through this further, if the answer is we like the idea, but nothing can be permanently there, I can go back to the drawing board, and like whatever enters must leave at night. I can go back to the drawing board and maybe make some suggestions if that's a point of concern.
I think my biggest point of concern is the parking and the traffic in and out, because we already are very limited in parking in there. We have a lot of people in and out, and it would just be more and more traffic on the beach, just more action on the beach. I don't know if there are some of the marinas on the cove or things like that you could approach, if there were some other opportunities, some other commercial places that you might want to reach out to. I love the idea. I hope you do it somewhere, because I'll be a customer. But I would be concerned of it on Havens at the moment. So I think we need to give it some thinking. You need to maybe think about if there is a payment schedule, and Denise will work with the village attorney to come up with what kind of thing it might be, if at all we can do it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I'm welcome to any feedback that would make this work, and I'm happy to rethink those parameters, so I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we are now at the public comment part of the meeting. So if there is anyone who has not had something to say about anything already, and they want to speak about something to bring up to the board attention, please do. Please try to keep it short, sweet, to the point, and introduce yourself as you start, and you can just unmute your microphone.
And
I think Nada is first, Adam, sorry.
Absolutely.
I was not going to say anything, but what I just heard, I think you're opening up, as Tom said, a can of worms. There are other people who would love to utilize Havens Beach for private uses, and that has not been set up in all sorts of ways to have something like that. I wish that the woman a lot of luck, but that is not the appropriate place. I can promise you. Having listened to the meetings over the years and people who've come up with things, it's no. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nada.
All right. Mr. Potter?
So I might only have one quick comment.
Introduce yourself, please.
I'm sorry, Adam Potter with Friends of Bay Street. I only have one quick comment, which is about the waterfront overlay district and limiting the commercial space to 1,500 square feet in the office district, where today there is no limit. I think that is a little rash, given the fact that in the village business, it's allowed 2,000 square feet. So at a minimum, I would say it should be mimic the village business district and not go further, restrict it from the from what it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Probably a good idea to put that in writing as well to the committee, if you would, Adam.
Absolutely.
We will, in the meantime, we will remember it. Is there anyone else? All right, then moving on to committee reports. Wow. Starting with our police department, we had 495 calls for service in the month of February. We had 7 arrests, which were 3 less than we had in January. And other than that, we have our signs are working. Our new speed sign is working. We issued 138 parking summonses, and we had officers do training at East Hampton PD for first aid, CPR, and defibrillator. You will also hear later tonight about the police reform. We will be posting that, I assume, tomorrow, and we'll give you an idea what the schedule is on that when we get to that. So that is the police report. As far as parks go, we have to date raised over $300,000 for John Steinbeck Park, which is wonderful. We're very excited. We have various big ticket items that have been sponsored, including the dining pavilion and the beach. So we appreciate all the support that we're getting from the community, and we will be moving forward. We also just got a donation for all the topsoil for the beach, or for the park in general. So that was a very nice donation. So things keep moving forward, and that is that. I do want to address 1 minute about John Steinbeck's house. Many of you have been calling, questioning what can be done to save John Steinbeck's house. As you heard from our budget presentation, we do not have $17.9 million, so we will not be buying it and keeping it as a shrine ourselves as the village, but we have put it in for national landmark status. We will be waiting to hear back from that, but we expect to hear back from that within the next few weeks. And once we know what that is, then we can see if there are any other landmarking or preservation steps that are going to be taken. So those are my 2 reports. Trustee Gardella.
Thank you, Mayor Mulcahy. I have a report from the fire department for February 2021. The fire department volunteered for over 357 man hours. They responded to a structure fire. They had to respond to 1 motor vehicle accident, which was a vehicle versus a pedestrian. And they had 1 dumpster fire. They also had 39 other reported alarms within the district. In February, Suffolk County Fire Academy resumed training, and they were able to take advantage of it by going to a mask confidence drill at the Suffolk County Fire Academy. They were also able to train at a house in the village prior to it being demolished. As far as the vaccine goes in our membership, it looks like out of the 165 firefighters that we have, currently, I believe just over half have been fully vaccinated. And those vaccines continue to be administered. So the fire department is on its way to being fully vaccinated. And that's the report for the fire department. As far as the ambulance goes, in February 2021, they had 61 emergency calls, 4 work nights, 2 meetings, 4 training sessions, 1 drill, 1 work detail, for a total of 853 man hours, as compared to 1,015 man hours from the prior year, 2020. Also, the blood drive, they sponsored a blood drive which collected 126 pints of blood. And we'd like to thank the community who came out and was able to donate. And those are my reports.
Thank you. Trustee Plum, Building Department and Code Enforcement.
Well, Trustee Plum really doesn't have a whole lot to say because we're working with our new inspector, and we wanted to do the report on March 24th, because we're just organizing, and we didn't really get the numbers done this month.
Okay.
But we will. By the 24th, we'll have it.
Great.
He has a lot on his plate.
Yes, he does.
And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Trustee Corish, sewer and grants.
Thank you, Mayor Mulcahy. We'll start off with sewer. For the month of February, the total gallons received 1.496 million gallons of inflow. Total gallons of sludge removed was 18,000. DMR reports were forwarded on 3/9/21. Suffolk County DHS inspection date, next inspection is 5/12/21. And as always, the New York State DEC inspection date is open. We had no complaints for the month of February. And a summary of operations, the wastewater treatment plant is running well under all permitted levels. Now operating on 3 basins. The inflow has increased as the winter season is slowly coming to an end. We had alternate power solutions out to service the generator. And Suffolk County Health Department was out for its annual 3-month inspection. And I'll go into a little detail on that in a second, not too much though. And the flow decrease from January to February was approximately 249,000 gallons. The Suffolk County inspection covers 75 items. It's really granular, and it goes into every detail of the operation and maintenance of the plant. The highest grade is satisfactory, and it goes down from there. And I'm delighted to say that once again, all 75 items had a satisfactory grade. So I'd like to express our gratitude and admiration for Dee, Fran, Charles, and John down there at Sewage Treatment Plant, the unsung heroes of the village. Moving on to the grant report for this month. Tonight we've got 2 grant applications on the agenda. We're submitting both applications to the East Hampton CPF Water Quality Committee. Closing date for this round of applications is this coming Thursday at 4 o'clock. We're submitting a grant application for the second phase of the stormwater mitigation plan. We're also requesting funding for the required engineering study and report to progress the sewering of sewer shed L as defined or identified in the Cameron interim report that was presented, I believe, 2 months ago. That report also identifies areas K and I as the other sewer sheds to be addressed. And for those people who are following this, and I know there are quite a few in the village that are following this with a keen interest, the only reason that L is being presented tonight and not K, which is the next one on our list, is that L lies within the town of East Hampton. And as I said, the next East Hampton grant submission date is this coming Thursday at 4 o'clock for the next round of funding. We expect to submit a similar grant request for area K, which is the Garden Street area, as soon as we have a submission date from the town of Southampton. And we expect that date to be sometime in May. And that concludes my reports, Mayor. Thank you.
Very much. Trustee LaRocca.
Thank you, Mayor. Start with Public Works. We had snow on February 1st, 7 inches. February 7th, we had another 6 inches. February 13th, we had 1/10 of an inch, but it was all ice. And when you put all that together with the lack of warming in between, we had one of the longer sieges of snow on the ground and challenge to our troops out there on the front lines. To top it all off, after a quick thaw, we had on the 18th and 19th another 6 to 8 inches of snow. There were no casualties associated with this, no unusual problems, and again, they do the work in a way that makes it look easy. But I tell you, the guys working hard and long hours without a lot of break in that period of time. Then on the 1st of March, just to celebrate February, there was a windstorm that brought down one very large tree on a truck. Fortunately, nobody was around. The truck was demolished. The tree was a great old oak, almost as wide as the truck. And they took care of that within half a day. Routine stuff, swimming the streets, sweeping of the streets, and particularly when the temperatures are above freezing, they can get the sweeper out. Tree trimming is going on as necessary. There is some sidewalk a little bit of sidewalk backup on spot paving. That will continue with the improvement in the weather. The routine picking up of garbage. There will be a spring cleanup week where yard wastes can be put out, including fallen branches and that sort of thing. It'll last about a week. It'll be the second or third week in April. The details to be announced when we have a weather pattern that we're looking at. All else is well in public works. In the harbor, the quiet you see now is about to change. People are very pent up this year. We think we'll see a lot of boats early, as we began to see last year. Bob and the team have been doing repairs on the ice machines that we've been using and beginning to do repairs on the docks. There'll be a pitch coming along. I will recuse myself on it for repaving of Marine Park, just replanking rather, of Marine Park, long overdue. The annual repairs are beginning to exceed any logical number. The harbor master has been very busy booking for the season ahead. Through just this month, there was bookings of transient dockings of almost $13,000. These are quick visits that people make, and with our new setup, pay in advance. There was one Marine patrol out during the month, but other than that, it was quiet. And this is an unusual event, but there was one stranded dolphin in the just in the outer harbor, which adds a little color to our local village. The numbers, we're looking at parts of the budget that are falling short. The February DACWA, that's our booking agency that we share profit with, saw the volume go up to $62,000 against the season ahead. All of our docks are fully rented for our regular seasonal rentals, and we're beginning rentals in advance for our bigger transient slips. It was at this point last year $48,000. At this year, so far it's $62,000. And the year-to-year totals of all, when we look at the entire revenues, we're projecting about a $70,000, $71,000 increase so far. That seems quite secure over the year before. So the bright spot when you're looking at sewers and the court is that the waterfront is thriving as we go into this season. At the court, the number of cases opened has risen. It begins to rise as we get into February, March. The number of cases closed has reduced, but that's because we're just processing fewer cases, still very much a victim of the COVID impact on the courts. The year-end number, which you've heard me use before, was this year over year, 19 to 20, went from 682,000 to 383,000, a profound gross loss. And when I went back and looked all the way back to when we began with our own village court, these are the lowest numbers since the court was opened in just now, January and February. So our shortfalls continue as we go forward. The court is more active, there are more live days, but this is a real shortfall to be contended with as we go forward. And that is my report.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to accept the department reports?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, up to correspondence requiring action. We need to approve the treasurer's budget transfers. Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The chief of police requests authorization to advertise for traffic control officers for the 2021 season. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Authorized to accept the resignation of Zachary Klein from his position as part-time police officer. Can I get a motion?
Moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Get a motion to accept the grievance adjustments recommended by the town of the Southampton assessors.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion to adopt the Village of Sag Harbor Emergency Operation Plan? And before we take that motion, I do want to thank Beth Camper, our clerk, who worked very hard on getting this done, and our attorneys and everybody else to get it done and out and on time, etc. So can I get a motion to approve it?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Moved. Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Authorization to accept the resignation of Bruce Zumo, EMT paramedic.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Authorization for DMB Engineers and Architects, DPC, to prepare the annual MS4 report. This is a stormwater report. We're going to kick off this with a meeting later this week between the engineers and the Harbor Committee Chair, myself, and Dee Yardley, our Public Works, to, again, make sure our stormwater is being disposed of or sent out in the right way and cleaned properly. Can I get a motion?
Moved.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Austin McGuire, Chief of Police, requests authorization to release the draft reform and reinvention plan on March 10th for public comment. This is another plan that has been worked on tirelessly by our Chief of Police, AJ McGuire, along with the committee from various and sundry places within the village and demographics within the village and communities. We've been meeting every Monday night for the past 2 months, I believe, going through what our police looks like now and what we'd like them to look like in the future, and how we can best assure that our police are unbiased and protecting every resident of Sag Harbor and every visitor to Sag Harbor. And I think everyone will find the plan is thorough and has some really great ideas, thanks to the committee and suggestions. So tomorrow it will be posted on the website. It will be up. We encourage comments. You'll see on the posting how to make comments, and we will have this will be part of the public hearing on March 24th. And hopefully we can approve it that night, and because it is due by April 1 to New York State. So can we get a authorization to release to public comment?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And I do really encourage everyone to read through it, make the markups as Jim suggested, but let's, we need to be able to keep this moving through. Can we get an authorization to approve Sarah Gage's aged exemption renewal application for 10% partial tax exemption?
So moved.
Property of senior. Thank
Second.
you. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bay Street Theater requests the authorization to have their summer 2021 main stage season at 22 West Water Street from May 29th to September 5th. The proposal is in the packet. I don't know if the board has questions or if you'd like Tracy to take us through the top line of it.
Maybe Tracy can take us through, and then I do have a couple of questions.
Okay, great.
Great, thank you, Mayor. So our proposal is to, in fact, have a summer season, which would be outdoors under a tent on the 7-Eleven property in the parking lot of our new future home. Because the limitations are so restricted right now still with Actors Equity and where we stand with indoor performances. This is really the only way that we can have any kind of summer season. So we proposed a tent with massive amounts of COVID restrictions as are required by the union, Actors Equity, and our other unions that involve our people like directors and stagehands and whatnot. So it is actually even more strict than what the governor requires, the New York State requires. And we're looking at up to 200 people, socially distanced, 6 feet apart, with temperature taking and touchless ticketing, all those kinds of things that are required in order to put on a show. In order to mitigate any additional issues, we would have a company, a cast that consists of 10, a repertory company. And so all of whom need to be tested, including those of us that work with them 3 times before they arrive, and then weekly beyond that. So it's a pretty strict setup that is required of us, but we would like to be able to return to live performance, and we can assure that it will be safe. So that's what we're requesting.
It's good to me.
Aiden, we can't hear you.
I had muted myself. So your proposal is from May 29th through September 5th. Does that mean that all the stores in that mall, whatever you want to call it, will be closed prior to your first event? And is the tent there permanently? I mean, when I say permanently, I mean from the 29th of May through the 5th of September.
The tent would remain in place, correct, as would the chairs, which would, they're just folding chairs, but they would all need to be numbered specifically so that everyone has an exact seat to go to. It's not a, come find your own place kind of deal. As to the tenants, I'll let Adam speak to that.
Okay.
So at this point, we've given notice of all the tenants are on a month-to-month basis. We would prefer not to kick them out and let them, remain for the summer season. We have given notice to both 7-Eleven and the Sing City, because we had to give them so much advance notice in order to do this. But we are willing to work with them to let them stay through the summer or, until we have our plans in place. But we wanted to talk with you guys about that first. We are prepared to let them leave if we have to, or to have them close down during the performance times, or work other ways to ensure that that the village is not disrupted and the theater goers are not disrupted as well. So we're very flexible in how we move forward and wanted to give that option to you, the trustees.
We just got this on Thursday. There's a lot to unpack here, so I'm just going to ask a few more questions and I'll turn the floor over. You just mentioned you were going to have 200 seats in the tent. In the application for the tent permit, it mentions 100 people per event. And
No, that application was updated
okay, that's fair.
on Tuesday. Yes. So
and then in another document here, it mentions between 101 and 150 people. So that was updated as well.
Yes,
okay.
Because we changed it when the governor said that he believed that by summertime we'd be up to 200. So
right. And do you have a parking plan? As to
no, we do not. We will not be open in the theater itself.
But you have a parking plan for this event, as how when you have 200 people showing up to the tent, as in they'll just park in the village, whatever's available throughout.
Same as they would if they were at Bay Street.
At Bay Street. Okay. I have more questions for later, but I think that covers me for now.
So if the stores are still open, I'm assuming this tent takes up the entire parking space.
Yes, there's about between 10 and 12 parking spaces that would be allotted. That's why we're leaving it up to you all. I mean, it.
So there would still be, I'm sorry, Tracy, there would still be 10 to 12 parking spaces available in that
Yes.
lot for those
Yes.
stores that would stay open.
Where would those be? Because I'm looking at
Yeah, I'm a little confused on where the map.
this.
Let me just look. Let me pull up what I had from
Where is
my.
the stage? It's back?
Stage is here. It's up close to Cape
It's
Pasa.
up, yeah, it's up.
It's at the Cape Pasa side? Okay.
Wait, let me.
And you're pulling power out of the store, so you have a ramp or whatever for cables.
Correct. Correct.
And then for bathrooms and all of that other facility, is that going to be used? What's in the buildings?
Yes, that's our hope.
But you'd also talk about letting the stores operate. Maybe how does that?
Again, if they're allowed to operate, then we'd have to bring in restrooms, porta potties. But if not, then we would plan on using those from the building.
Okay. And I don't know if HA or the fire department have seen this to go through any sort of health and safety issues and access and everything else, because the tent seems to cover the entire parking lot, as far as I can see from this, with maybe, I don't know, a 15-foot strip that's available between the east side of the tent and the west side of the Cape Pasa pass through there.
Hi, this is Scott, the artistic director at Bay Street. I will assure you that our team followed all the fire regulations when they put this tent plan together. Obviously, the fire chief should double check that, but we believe we are within all the required regulations in terms of space and distances.
Keith Payne got in touch with me this morning, just to say that he was reviewing it and was waiting to hear from you all as to what the outcome was of the meeting. I don't know if he's been in touch with anybody else. He obviously still needs from us the usual requirements when we have a tent, and that is our liability, our workers' comp, and the flame retardant, which we get, those all from, we get that from the ladder from the tent company.
Sure.
So we had not booked the tent yet, just in case, but we'd be willing to go forward, of course, and get all that to him after this meeting.
And this is a clear span tent. There's no supports.
That's correct.
Yeah. And are the sides open or closed?
Sides have to remain open. As a matter of fact, whether they're even there or not, we don't know at this point, but they're not allowed to be closed during the performances.
Right.
Would these
Sorry.
businesses be open concurrently with your performances?
I'm sorry, say it again, Bob?
Would the businesses be open at the same time as your performances?
I don't think that could be possible.
Yeah, okay.
We're planning the performances to be at 7:30 p.m. Tuesdays through Saturdays and 5 o'clock on Sundays. We want to ensure that those people that can't drive at night, a lot of our senior citizens don't like to drive at night, so we want to have at least one performance that they're able to see before dark.
Tom?
Yeah, is there a way, I would like to table this until the work session, because I think there's a lot to go over here as far as public safety goes. And also, I have concerns about noise and other stuff. I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just saying I'd like to consult with the fire chief and the police chief and with code enforcement before we go ahead and approve something like this.
What is the sound? How's the sound being done, Tracy?
The sound is being done like we do it in the theater. There is a possible way, if you would prefer there to be no sound on the exterior of the tent, that we could provide headsets and have it be completely silenced. But our hope was that, if people want to gather in the in Steinbeck Park and they want to hear Camelot being sung, they could hear it, and they could hear it for free. With a 7:30 start, the latest end time, 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 10, between 10 and 10:30 is the final end of a performance of the longest one, which would be Camelot. So that again would be up to you. Of course, there's an added expense for us to, make sure that we can provide all these headsets and the cleaning of all of that.
Is there
And-
somewhere in the middle that, like, I think, is there some kind of, we talked about this earlier about for the cinema and sound, of some kind of way to make sure the sound is very within the tent without having to go to headphones? Because I think I've done that, and
Yeah.
it takes a lot out of the experience. But some way so that the people eating at K Pasa or at Dopo, or just the people all around,
Sure,
aren't ready to lose their
Well-
mind with Camelot after it's been playing for 2 straight weeks.
right. Scott, maybe you can
I
speak to
can
that.
speak to this. I mean, the sound system that we would put together would in fact be targeted to be for the people in the tent. The speakers are directional, and they would be placed specifically so they covered the seating area in the tent and were not aimed to be spilling out of the tent. Obviously, when you're playing music or singing, some of that noise will bleed, but there aren't these are very specific speakers made to cover specific distances and specific areas. So I do think it would be controlled. We're not just setting up a huge bunch of speakers that are pointed everywhere.
Could you send me a tear sheet on those speakers?
I can look into that, sure.
That would be great. Just, I have a lot of event experience. I'd just love to see what these are.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, we haven't designed the whole system yet,
Sure.
because we
No,
need to
but
get the
when the time
approval
comes.
before we do that.
Yeah,
But we can let you know the kind of speakers we would use, absolutely.
See, LaRocca?
There's a lot to digest here. The stage would back to the K Pasa parking lot. If I've got the diagram here.
Yes,
So the stage is set on the eastern end of the property,
correct,
facing to the west.
correct.
So the back of the stage would be behind K Pasa and their parking in the various equipment and the stockade that they built in there last
Right.
year. Is that not a problem for the stage to be backing on an active restaurant? And the activity, there'll be cars in and out of there, as there are, I presume. I'm just asking, just strikes me practically as would be very difficult to control what's going on behind your performance.
I'm uncertain about that. I mean, we could ask our sound designer, but Scott, do you have anything to that?
Yeah, we feel that it's the best position. It leaves, it's the most controllable position, and we'll put a wall of some sort behind the stage, so you're not looking at the back of K Pasa. So we think that it'll be okay. But thank you for the question.
Yeah, the tent itself behind there, and then the stage. There's trees that divide the property line. So, but if it's something that's, again, an issue from your end for any reason, I don't see why we couldn't.
I haven't had this long enough to have an issue from my end yet.
I'm unclear as to why, because we put in the original thing 2 weeks ago, and then all we did was upgrade it, the additional 100 people on, I don't know, last Tuesday, I guess it was.
Well, I would just observe, Tracy, that most people, as you heard in our very long meeting this morning, most people come in for a discussion before they bring an application. The application was only filed on Thursday. So I don't feel that there's been an abundance of time to digest a very big proposal. That's why I'm asking my questions, but my questions are not systematic. They're just impulsive as I look at what I see. I do notice that, maybe seconding what Aidan raised, I don't see where the parking is. Maybe we could come back to that. you're going to save 10 or 12 spaces. Is that what I heard?
That was the last application that we put in. I believe there were still 10 or 12 spots on the outside of that perimeter. But I can have that checked and send you.
It's not apparent on the current diagram.
Okay.
And the right of way would be, I presume, closed throughout, or how would that work? There is a right of way from the side of the 7-Eleven building back to the traffic circle, or not quite to the circle, you know.
Right. I mean, I guess that's up to Keith and the safety, and as Tom said, I guess the people that need to make those decisions. I would think that would only be used then for, you know, fire and emergency purposes, but it's up to you.
If you were to keep the stores, at least the stores fronting on the parking lot open, how do you see that access working during the day, let's say?
So I think what we envision is, you know, again, this is your call, but if you did allow those stores to remain open, people would still come from the sidewalk, from the street, and utilize the stores. You know, both the 7-Eleven as well as Sing City.
Right, but the parking lot as we envisage it now would not be available.
Correct.
I think we really do need to sit down. I think
we need to.
when you did come in before, I don't think we assumed that the stores would still have any potential of being open. So I
Which
think
also is fine by, you know, I mean, that's fine by us as well. They, as Adam said, they've all been given notice, but you know, I know there's been a lot of outcry about the 7-Eleven, and so we just wanted to give that as an option if again parking wasn't, you know.
I have a question about parking that
Mhm.
disturbs me. Your current location, you said you're going to have use the same parking as Bay Street does, but Bay Street has been grandfathered a substantial number of parking lots that are associated with that building, not so much associated with the activity. And here we have a different location, and we have to look, in my mind, we just have to look at this as being separate. I want this to work and I want the theater to work, but we have a real responsibility as to, you know, how people get in and out of here, how people show up, how do they disperse. And so you know, as Kathleen said, and Jim, I just need more time.
Sure, I understand that, Aiden.
I think we also maybe need to have a meeting face to face. I know
Sure.
with the chief, with Tom in regards to safety, maybe, you know, Aiden or Jim or one of you or both of you, you know, I think we need to do a face-to-face meeting. If we want to, maybe that can be done next week at some point.
Yeah, I think that would be
I won't
great.
be here, but I think, you know, Aiden and Tom, if the two of you want to do it with AJ and Tracy and Adam, and Scott and whoever, whatever makes sense. But I think we need to leave this, table it for now, and then have a face-to-face meeting and really sit down and talk through a lot more things where everybody can move the map around in front of them, et cetera.
Right. And again, this was just our first presentation. Like when we do the gala tent, we always sit down and have a meeting with AJ and everybody involved. So, and Keith and whoever else needs to be there. So the idea was just to get this out because we need to be making a lot of decisions, just like Kelly does, in order to actually make a season possible. And I want to assure you, Aiden, that because the theater itself will actually be closed this summer, there will be no performances there.
Right.
We are unable to make use of that, and we doubt that we will be, you know, well into the fall. So that's our plan.
I mean, we've had tents in the village before. It's just that, you know, from May 29th through September 5th, and
it's a different
have
thing.
to get our heads around what this really means. and what the knock-on effects of all this are so that we make the right decision. And I really appreciate you putting all this together and look forward to continuing the conversation, as they say.
So I will leave it with Aiden for you to actually get something rolling, if that's okay.
Okay. I would suggest Wednesdays or Fridays are good for me because I'm here all day. So we can touch base offline and pick up the conversation.
Terrific. Thank you, Aiden, and thank you, trustees and mayor.
Jim, sorry.
Tom, did
Much
you have something you want to add before? Oh,
I
I'm
was
sorry.
just going to make a motion to table it until, further discussion.
I think Jim
And I would second that. I can't let the opportunity go by. Adam, what else is going on? Rumor mill continues to churn. Have you acquired more property? You said that you were going to relocate any of the displaced people. How's that going? But we get asked all the time, so I'm just taking advantage of you being here to allow you to tell us what else is going on.
No, sure. I look forward to having that conversation. We're in the process of hopefully scheduling the next meeting, which I think is on the 24th. I had a conversation with the mayor today. We want to come and present to the village what our proposal is for the new Bay Street, and want to have some more conversations with that about you. So I look forward to having those conversations. We're still in the planning process, and we'll be able to really outline exactly what we're looking for and how we're looking on doing it in the next probably week and a half or 2 weeks.
Okay. Would that include what you were doing with other properties? You're clearly active and the rumor mill is churning. And if there's anything you can share with us about your plans for the rest of the neighborhood, we'd like to know what they are.
Oh, absolutely. I would love to share that with you. And once they're developed, you will be the first one I call, Jim, and let you know what those are, but they're not fully vetted or developed. So once those are, would love to sit down with you and share those with you, get your feedback. As I've always said, I've been very open and public about what we're looking for the new Bay Street, what we're looking for elsewhere. And we'll be glad to have those conversations when they're ready.
Adam, I have just one question before you go. You said that everybody at this location is on a month-to-month basis now as far as their leases go.
Correct.
And any other businesses in town on a month-to-month lease that you'd like to comment on?
I don't know if I understand the question.
Well, is there any other buildings that you have an interest in where the tenants are on a month-to-month lease?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, thank you.
We get a vote to table. I think we had the motion and the second. Can we get a
Aye.
vote? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I have so lost where we are because I've got so many papers on my desk now. Give me 2 seconds.
Number 11.
Number 11, authorizing submission of an application for the town of East Hampton CPF Water Quality Grant for the second phase of stormwater mitigation plan.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Mayor, I'm sorry, can I interrupt for one moment? May I ask that we amend the resolution to also include one line, as well as authorization for the mayor to execute any and all documents pertaining to the program? So we don't have to come back again for that authorization.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Oh.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Can we get establishing the 2021 seasonal parking rates for paid parking on Long Wharf?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The harbor master requests permission to advertise for the position of dock master.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor? Everybody's seconding. Everybody. Okay. Oh my God, the last one. Authorization for the mayor to execute any and all documents pertaining to the town of East Hampton Community Preservation Fund Water Quality Improvement Program to support estimated project costs associated with the engineering, design, and related services for sewering.
I'll make the motion.
Great. Bob, you seconded? All in
Yeah.
favor?
Aye.
And Mayor, on my agenda, we don't have the motion to submit the grant application for Area I Engineering, CPF. I don't know if you.
That's the last one.
Oh, it
That's
is. I beg your pardon.
Number 14, yes.
Number 14 is it?
Thank you.
Okay, we're done, other than approval of bills? Beth, yes?
Yes, and then public comments.
Okay,
Have we
so
done 14?
we just did 14.
Okay, beg your pardon. Sorry, I'm losing track here.
I know, I understand. Can I get a motion to approve the payments in warrant 45, 46, 47, 48, and 49, please?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have anyone who is still waiting to say something out there? Any of you brave souls who have waited all this time to say anything, please speak up. No? Okay.
Risk of bodily harm.
Don't you dare.
We will see everybody on March 24th. No, don't everybody disappear yet. March 24th, the work session where we will be talking in depth about the waterfront planning as well as the budget, as well as a couple of other things that were discussed tonight. The police reform. So 3 big discussions that night, as well as whatever else comes up. Also on March 18th, mark your calendar, 6 p.m. March 18th, Harbor Committee's work session will have Dr. Gobler giving us the report of our water quality from last year. So that's always a great presentation and worthy of everyone's time. And if nobody has anything else, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank
Night
you.
all.
I'd say get home safe, but everyone is home but Bethany.
Good night. Thank you.